evening. We don't have anyone yet here, with us, but those who are online, we certainly welcome. Appreciate you taking time to be with us. I now call to order the October 28th, 2021 Special Board of Aldermen meeting. Please join us in the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance
to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Roll call, please.
Alderman Becker.
Here.
Alderman Rucker.
Here.
Alderman Osteen.
Here.
Alderman Ross.
Here.
Alderman Rose. Here. Mayor Albright.
Here. All right, we do have a quorum. First item on the agenda is unfinished business. And while there is unfinished business in the form of board request for additional information on some previous workshop items, I would ask the board's agreement to address those items after we hear our new business. Is there any opposition? All right, seeing none, we move on to our new business, which is the third and last scheduled budget workshop to review the FY 2022 operating budget draft number 1. Turn it over to City Administrator.
Thank you, Mayor. Transportation Fund starts on your draft budget, page 66, with the summary, fund summary, the revenues on page 68, and then followed by the expenses. We discussed, again, we're going to discuss overall personnel. Kevin, do you have any people change in transportation, or is that only in sewer?
Only in sewer.
Okay.
Yep.
So unless you have some follow-up items on O&M, you can move right to the capital, which I know is on a separate sheet in the beginning of the budget. The one nuance for O&M, and I know the departments can answer more specific, but on the summary sheet I handed out the first night for O&M, transportation did see a decrease in O&M due directly to the payment of the Pruitt TIF bonds. And then also there was an increase to a couple items, and that is due to the specific seal or overlay schedule. Those items are more O&M because they're repair and replacement, and they don't fit the accounting definition of capital. So you'll see those increases, and that's per the payment maintenance plan schedule. So those are really the two major increases and decreases in overall O&M for transportation.
Question? If not, let's move into capital.
Since if somebody want to go first, I didn't want to always jump out there first, so I apologize.
Come right in.
So a couple quick things. Vehicle maintenance repair is planned to be, I'm sure I'm reading this right, quite a bit lower, which is a bit surprising, but I guess.
Vehicle maintenance?
And equipment repair. I'm trying to make sure I'm reading this line right.
Yeah.
28 to 35, and 20 to 29. Equipment repair is forecast to go down quite a bit, which is okay, I guess. Is there any particular reason it would go down a third?
No particular reason other than what we have now is we got tracks for skidders. We have gotten rid of some troublesome equipment that just went off on Blue Wave. Certain tractors that were troublesome. It's just a fair estimate based on the equipment we have on hand.
And then the other thing you mentioned.
It appears to be more in line with what we've seen in years past.
Fair enough, I hadn't looked that far back, good point.
Yeah.
The other thing is on the slurry seal. When the slurry seal came through on pavement maintenance line or whatever that is, it was in there, we've had that history, but I always wondered if it was really worth it. But at that point, that's what they recommended. I'm not going to speak for you, Code, but we had a discussion, and you weren't, if I recall, you weren't convinced that there's that kind of value there. Am I correct?
No, that's absolutely correct. But this slurry seal, it wouldn't be accurate at all to say this is the slurry seal. I'm not a fan of slurry seal. Slurry seal to me is like jet black that you do your driveway with. It's basically it's a petroleum product that's put on hot. doesn't bond particularly well and it's not structural. What we're suggesting is a turn and basically process where this is called Nova Chip. And since you did bring it up, I think it'd probably be appropriate to do another
You got
handout.
another piece of paper?
This is Nova Chip. It's proprietary. It is, well, it's new to us, I'll say. It's certainly not new. And this is how it's different. I took the liberty of going to Springfield with the transportation foreman this summer to see this product being put down. And it's definitely not slurry seal. So what it is, in fact, I got a chunk of it here that I brought with me, just to show the class. This is an extremely hard shot rock. Now, the angular spaces in here are much tighter on the roadways, as you see in the pictures that I took. It's hard to the point where it actually wears down the cutting edges of plows. That's okay, because I'd rather replace cutting edges on plows than replace roadway. But it's been around since, at least in the United States, since the 90s. It's being used exclusively by MoDOT, a number of states, Illinois, Minnesota, Chicago, all the way down to Louisiana. It actually started in China, oddly enough. I guess don't hold it against it. The product does work. I'll pass this along. You can actually take this shot rock and gouge the table. The aggregate in here is extremely hard, if you will, on a Rockwell kind of scale. Doesn't resemble slurry. Slurry is really fluid, of course. It only is fluid when it's hot. What's different about this product too is that basically it has to be put on with a proprietary paver. You can't get, Joe Bob's, asphalt overlay to come in and do this. And so we put Nova Chip in here in the hopes that they'll come here from St. Louis or from Kansas City. There's no locals, so we're trying to bundle this job together with other jobs to get them to come here. Again, the paver and the whole process is proprietary. And the history of it is really, really impressive. Whether we use it or not this time, I'm a believer. I saw a 10, 12-year-old road section with patches in it from water main repairs that were 7 years old. And those are just standard, asbestos asphalt, the concrete asphalt, AC38s, and the patches look terrible, but the original Nova Chip surface was still completely intact, still black, looked great even after 12 years. So I think that was worth just going through quickly, that this is not a slurry seal, which I'm not a real believer in. Again, whether we use it with this project or not, I'm kind of a champion of it.
So I guess my question is I know that Nova Chip was introduced by you all, doing great work, but as I recall, I don't have it in front of me, I didn't grab my computer, there was also normal slurry seal that was still in that plan.
There is, sir.
Right, and so are we gonna continue to do that, or are we backing off, which I'm hoping we are? Because I'm not convinced we should be doing normal slurry seal that we are used to.
We do have $106,500 in the budget for slurry seal, which follows the PP&P plans almost exactly to what, as it was proposed to the board over the summer.
Right, that's what I didn't remember the amount. So I guess the basic question is, Kevin, I think Kevin's the smartest guy in the room. I'm curious your thoughts about whether we should spend that $106,000 on that slurry seal.
Well, it buys time, right? Nova Chip could be cost prohibitive if we don't get good pricing, and we're not going to get good pricing unless we get a lot of interest in the area. They're not going to mow out for our small lane miles that we're going to do. So if I had a choice, I do Nova Chip on everything. Again, the costs are kind of up in the air for the bidding. In lieu of that, slurry seal is better than nothing at all. Slur seal will buy you time. It's not a structural improvement. It will keep the roadway from alligatoring, from breaking apart for a certain amount of time. It's open for debate whether that's a great thing going forward to use in the future, but it's a.
So you support the $106,000 in the slurry seal?
I do.
Sure.
I do.
That's all I need.
Anything else? Seeing that there is nothing else, let's move on to capital.
So for the
Jump in anytime, even if you're new.
So before the departments get into answering questions on the specific, the one part I was directly involved with was matching up the revenue sources from several of the projects. And I tried to put as much detail in the titles to keep them straight, because we have several projects that engineering are hopefully be done this year, construction in the next year. So whether you're looking on page 72, 71 and 72, or that summary of capital sheet that we've been using throughout the board nights, all of the projects that are funded with Osage Beach Special Road District reimbursement money are listed. We have the executive drive extension, which we do have the cost share program, and Osage Beach Special Road District. So on the revenue side of the budget, you will see those listed in blue, because again, I'm referring to the summary sheet I handed out, which has the revenue type to it. So Amy Lane is the only one that is labeled an Osage Beach Special Road District project that has been requested, but because of the timing of this, we haven't officially been to the board with the permission to proceed with that on the city side. So we'll get to that in the upcoming weeks, but I did include in the budget that it's 100% funded with the Osage Beach Special Road District, should the board decide to move forward with that one.
All right, any questions?
So basically, Gina, on the roads, the only ones that we are doing the project completely on our own dollar-wise is the top four, I guess you could say.
Case
Everything down below, we're either doing it for the road district, or we're doing it with the road district, or with the road district and the MoDOT.
Correct.
Anything else, Kevin?
No.
Richard?
Is the concrete shooter a replacement, or is that something new and we're gonna be able to do something we haven't been able to do before?
The concrete shooter is a mixer and a distributor for concrete for curbing. It basically speed up the process of doing sidewalk pads and curbs in-house. This was ordered last year and we never did receive it, COVID, whatever.
So this is kind of like a carryover?
It's something of a carryover that I believe the cost changed. It's something that was ordered or misordered. We never received it,
Okay.
so it's back up again.
Okay. And Mike, do you know how many miles this van has on it now?
Yeah.
Well, not today, but the last few years.
I think there's a picture with more up-to-date mileage, but the mileage that I have that I took in July was,
In your packet, that looks like this on the front, there's a picture of the van, first page, exactly. It has 147K on it today.
and when I took it in July, it had a little over 140.
Would you say Kevin has now?
147.
Okay.
It does accrue miles at a pretty good tick because of its, it goes to Tipton and back, Tuesday, Thursday, and Friday, round trip. And why it's for replacement, again, if you're on the page, this vehicle's 13 years old with 147K on it, accrues high mileage, as I said, due to its tasking, and it's nearing the end of its service life. Here's the kicker though, why it's push is we've added additional inmates and services to our program, going from 3 inmates to 5. So if you've ever driven around in a van with a bunch of kids, like I have, you got that third row seat in the back, and between there, the 2 captain's chairs, right? So how do I say this? Not a lot of these inmates are small guys. So it's kind of a calling car situation, right? Where you got the slider, you roll in, and you got to squeeze between the 2 captain seats, and then you got 3 rows in back. Well, not 3 rows, but 3 seats. That's okay for a car seat and a 5-year-old, but for 3 grown men that are not small, it's tough, right? Kind of sitting like this. So it's a mousy 3.3 liter engine. It's a little anemic for what we're asking it to do, carrying 5 to 6 males plus a trailer plus equipment. It's you can see that there's covers on the seats because it's not a commercial vehicle, right? It's a grocery getter. So they come in August and they're sweating and they sit on the fabric seats and you can go from there. So what we're looking to do is replace it with a larger commercial style transit van with rear storage. What they carry with them typically are vests, PPE, meaning a ton of glasses, some tinted, some not, ear protection. And you'll notice in the picture, what we have here, there's a can of paint back there, and that's for painting hydrants. And it doesn't lend itself very well to a lot of the jobs. Back in the day when we started this program, it was okay with 3. Again, we're in service life, and we've added more personnel to the program, and so that's why we're looking for 2 main reasons. Is the additional people, and it's a mousy vehicle to begin with.
Anything else, Richard?
So the estimate of the number of estimates 43 here is the 28.5, as I'm not looking at the sheet, is that the difference between what we expect to get out of the current van?
So the expense is the full expense, and any revenue for sales will be full revenue on the revenue side.
So this number should, and I'm not complaining, but should that number be 43 here on the budget?
28.5 is what I got from the departments. They need to tell me.
Maybe they changed their mind.
They changed that was they just.
Did we have the estimate for this vehicle at 23?
28.
28.5 is what's in the.
28.5 is what the department.
28.5 is what the amount is being requested, but it's showing a $2,000, as possible, sale value.
Right, but that comes in as revenue, so I'm not complaining that we should spend 43,000, but just from a quick accuracy standpoint, it's not a huge deal, but just a heads up. So
28.5 is what the department.
28.5.
Apologize for the confusion. I
it's
don't know
okay.
where the 43 was perhaps a different van. The Econoline series was discontinued. The Transit's coming in to replace it. With this, I will say, I apologize for the confusion with the numbers here, but one note is that I did talk to a dealer about this van. He said, you can order it, you ain't gonna get it, okay? The issue is that with COVID and chips and everything else and used prices going through the roof up to 30-40% for used vehicles increase, he goes, you can get in line. That's basically what you're going to do. Whether you get it this year, good for you. You might get it next year. You might not get it. Because I hate to be long-winded, but if you're Ford and the market is dying for your vehicle, why release it on state bid when you can sell it for retail? And that's kind of the problem that we may run into also with other city purchases as far as the state bid goes. You'll get the price, yes. Will you get the vehicle? Big question mark.
So once you get the vehicle you want, the vehicle you want costs 43,000. Is that correct?
That's the number we had. That's the number I got. I'm sorry.
It's okay.
Again,
I'm just trying to figure out what should be in here.
Yeah, the number.
I don't want you to have to do a budget amendment because.
Yeah.
Yeah,
If we need a correction, now's the time to do it.
yeah, that's correct.
So is the 43 the correct price for the final van you've quoted, or is
Is that a
28.5?
state bid or is that a?
That's on state bid
Okay.
for 43, and again, we hope that van becomes available to us for 43. That's for seating for 8, larger engine. We could downsize it, but that flies in the face of what we're trying to do. I'll have to get a solid number and make sure that I have my stuff together here. But I believe the number was 43.
So we want to move it to 43 now? Let Kevin tell us if it should be?
I have officially redlined and put 43.
Okay.
Thank you.
Okay, and then the only other question that I had, well, a lot of them drive shoulder improvement. I'm not sure, I don't know blood pressure. expanding the shoulder, or what? Because I don't know that we've discussed this, and maybe we have, and I just apologize if so.
Sure, I think Kevin in the street department got with us, there's a section of Bluff Drive, what's the intersection street this year, by Kevin?
It's towards the end, on the downhill side of Bluff. And I have pictures of this. It's one of.
So are we just reconstructing something?
There's a street,
No.
there's a steep slope off the edge of the road, and the road is kind of breaking off,
Okay.
and we're losing the structural integrity there.
Okay, so it's to maintain the road is what it's for.
Spot repair.
Okay. And then the other thing, and Jeannie, you may not have an update because I know we talked about a week ago about this, but Aver, right? So I don't know if you want to bring that up. It's not in here. We
It's
hoped it
not
would
in-
be, but there were some numbers that blew you out of the seat, I think. So,
Well, yeah, so I'll update the rest board on the last update with Kevin, and I know Cochran's working on this. The board specifically, I know Alderman Ross and Alderman Rucker has interested in how do we approach Aver like we do other private roads? How does it get up to speed? How can the special road district potentially help? And we've put them on notice, like, we may be coming to you, kind of the other way around, of saying, hey, we've got this road, what do we do? So Cochran was directed at several meetings ago to get a price. They have done a quote for full road standards on that road. It was pushing $1 million. So I sent it back and I said, what's some other options? We know this is as designed, as standards, curb gutter, but what are some other options as we've potentially maybe done with other private roads to get them to a level of standard, maybe not here. That, we don't have those numbers yet, so what's some options? So at least the board and or special road district has something to go like, what is the best thing to do with this road? And how do we get there? So I was kind of waiting on Cochran to, and then we ran into budget. So Dave may have an update on where some other quotes are, I don't know.
Well, I really don't have much of an update. I guess, we can certainly make some suggestions, but we may be looking for some guidance on, what we would like to reduce to get away from city standards. We want to talk about a narrower road. We've talked a lot about storm sewer on Autumn Lane, and our opinion that curb and gutter storm sewer on Autumn Lane. I feel the same way about Aver Road to maintain a good road here and not cause stormwater problems on the neighboring properties. That's going to be very challenging to do without curb and gutter and storm sewer. So I guess we can give you some options showing, if we remove curb and gutter from the project, if we lessen the storm sewer, what that would look like from a cost standpoint. I may need to give Public Works and kind of get some more direction on how we can try to get this cost where it's a little more palatable.
I think it might be fair for you and Kevin both, that board had a discussion a couple of years ago about roads that are not up to city standards that are private. And we wanted to try to bring them into our inventory. And we recognize that it would be extremely costly to take those roads that are already there, houses that are there, everything is all established, and make them the standards of what we have on new construction. The staff does not have the authority to accept a road unless it meets the city standards. The board has that authority to waive those standards. And the board said we would look at those different roads, road by road. We would not set a substandard that we're going to go by for every road, but we would look at it. Some roads we know, the housing is such that you just can't go any further. Some there might be a little bit more. So will we as a board accept, 10 foot? Depends. Will we accept it without curb and gutter? It depends. If we had a situation like on Autumn, the board felt very strong, I don't want to speak far on exactly, but that there was that. So, but if we can get by without that, to try to get these roads, at least a good hard surface road in there, we'd be willing to listen. I hope that's a fair analogy to bring you two up to speed on something that we kind of gave guidelines a couple years ago. So if that helps you with where we were, what our thoughts were.
One of our guidelines has to do with the incline of the road, does it not? And that's a very, very steep road, if I'm not mistaken, Tabor, as you get down towards the end, and it makes that big S curve, towards the end, which creates some problems. And then there's some, and then, down where Gene lives. And in addition to that, you've got, I guess, storm drainage handled with ditches down through there.
Yeah.
So, there's some concerns about that.
I-
Safety concerns, and if we do it, we accept it, the responsibilities that we'll have associated with that.
I talked to Kevin or Mike or both of you about snow removal requirements on that road. If you do accept it, I know there's lots of steep roads around. That look to me like that'd be a challenging situation for the city.
Come visit me.
I know that
Visit
road.
my house. I will show you a challenging road that this street
I'm sure it's not the only.
department.
They still do good, right?
Yes.
I know that the homeowners put together and hire a company for snow removal. And we had to change a couple years in a row, and for every one that we found would do it, we had 2 or 3 decline after seeing some of the corners. No, yep, we don't need your business that much. So it is.
How many homeowners are on Abram?
Well, right now, there's 8 that live there. There's some vacant, lots in between. There's more room for more homes, but right now there's
8 homes.
4, 5, 6.
That's a long road to new homes.
Yeah,
Yeah.
and most of them are down towards the bottom, down at the
Most
bottom.
of it's at the bottom.
Well, it's something that I think if we've got an interest in looking at Tabor, I'm not sure that that's something that we need in our budget for this year, but we certainly.
We need some numbers so we can
Right.
possibly.
Right,
Well, I appreciate Alderman Ross bringing it up, because I think that Dave can hear directly, because I'm trying to be the middleman there on what the board wants. So if you've got enough direction to.
And I don't know if this is the right way to approach this. Is there a price that's palatable for this project to give us some direction on, what scope we need to remove from this project to try to get somewhere?
For me, the dollar portion is not the thing. We need to have certain, for my vote, there needs to be a certain criteria, because we've got to be able to justify to the next group of subdivision people why we're putting such a requirement on their road that they want to bring in. So that's where I come from. So I think we just have to.
Well, I don't know that I would have a number. What I would say is that somebody with a lot less capacity than what we have as a city, has been maintaining those ditches. They're draining. Maybe I'm wrong, but maybe we're having flooding down there all the time. I'm assuming,
Depends.
well, and I don't know
hillside did
that
get
part.
taken
I don't know
out.
that part. And while I realize that it'd be nice to put in drainage like that, it's not gonna happen for another 10 years anyway. And so if there's something we can do in the meantime and get us closer to something that makes sense later on and helps alleviate what I believe, and I have not been down there for probably a year, but when I saw it a year ago, I was surprised, and it may have been longer than that, but I'm assuming it's not any better. It's probably getting to be almost gravel down there in some places.
I was down 5 months ago.
Right. So anyway, I don't know if that helps you or not. I know I am guessing that a large percentage of the cost is going to be in curb and gutter and storm drainage. But if you've got an estimate,
I can tell you that. Curb and gutter was $120,000. Storm sewer was $130,000. And another $70,000 in storm sewer structures. So about $320,000 for curb and gutter and storm sewer.
so is pavement the rest of it?
So we were taking this to two 9-foot wide lanes, so 18-foot width. There's parts of that now that are 10-foot wide.
You're gonna be my front door.
Yeah, there's narrow areas through there. So there's earthwork. There was some retaining wall.
If we go to 18, and Gene, I know you need to be
I
independent
try to-
on this, but you do know the folks down there, are we gonna be taking people's property, are gonna be blowing their minds if we go to 18?
Well,
Is that what your impression is?
well, not just maybe taking what little, but I'm just to give you an example. If you've been down there, where my house is, the opposite side of the road, my neighbor has a retaining wall that literally the retaining wall, pavement goes to it, that's the road.
There's no
Well, then where
space.
the road ends, that's my parking, and it's barely over one length of a car. So if, I don't know, I can't judge distance, but if that's one of the narrowest parts, either you're gonna take out his whole retaining wall, what little hillside he has, or now I've got a half a parking spot.
You're gonna step
My
out
front
onto the
door is
street.
literally pavement, parking, front door. So even if it was worth it to have a road, it's like, I don't have a lot of parking anyway. So that's a challenge, so
And
like
it's
Kevin was
not
said, road
just
roads
about
just
the
are
number of
gonna be
houses,
narrow.
Right.
exactly the same way.
2 or 3 others
It's
in a
like
similar
a
situation.
glorious one-way road.
Yeah.
You have to wait, for a car, but it's a dead end and there's only 3 more houses past me, so. It's not
So I
like-
assume there's some significant costs in the other 650,000 that is about right-of-way attainment and things like that. And
There's
then,
the other components that go along with the
That
project.
may or may not even be possible.
I've got direction to work with Public
Okay.
Works and come up with some options that we can present to the board.
One way with the passing lane every once in a while.
a little
What do you
solar
say?
light.
Yeah.
I don't know about that, but those are handy anymore compared to what they used to have. That's all I have, thank you.
All right. Anything else? Covers capital?
Covers capital.
All right. So then, do I have a motion to accept the capital as proposed,
Plus the one change to the van.
plus the one change to the cost of the van?
Motion.
We have a motion. Do I have a second?
Second.
All right. Tyler, all in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Capital budget for transportation is approved. Let's
So
move on.
water fund summary is page 73 of the draft budget, with revenues and expenses starting at page 75. Kevin, do you have water people changes? I can't remember, sorry, I should have.
No changes.
Just
We're,
the sewer. Okay.
yeah, it may be confused because we're trying to fill that 5th water spot for quite some time. Still trying to. I know, start with it. Yeah.
So water on the, changes in O&M, they had a little bit of increase in O&M mainly to electric service, which was a common denominator in a few funds, and then increase in training. They're not really budgeting, they're budgeting about the same as they budgeted in training last year, but just hopefully they'll get it done. Like with COVID, like all the departments, some things just still weren't happening in person and vice versa, so. So really, unless there's any questions on personnel or O&M, we could just go on to the capital.
Any questions on O&M or employees? Seeing none, let's move on to capital.
And I have nothing to add. I don't have any part in this one, so I'll leave it to Kevin to explain it or answer questions.
All right, questions on the capital? Richard?
So, one, Swiss Village Tower Clean, it is dirty again, there's no doubt about it. Anybody that have come up with a better idea than what we other than paint it every 2 or 3 years?
Yes.
And I'm not even sure we can do it. When was it? We just done it a couple years ago, or
I don't
time passed too
I don't have
fast?
that scheduled in front of me.
Are we at 3 or 4?
Swiss Village is the one water tower that's on a more frequent cleaning schedule than the others because of the mold and moss issue. But
What that is
I'd say
tree
3 or
mold.
4.
It's gonna, and it has, you're right, it gets dirtier faster because of the trees that are underlying it, had similar reservoirs in the past, and they get dirty like that. That tank will sweat. The sweat attracts the tree pollen, and here you are again, 3 years later, cleaning again. We are that's scheduled for 2022. To answer your question, the only thing you can do is buy a much more expensive paint called Hydroflon that has tighter, a tighter surface profile that doesn't allow,
Slicker.
It's slicker. It's like a clear coat, right? Like on a go-fast car. It's just got a bunch of clear coat on it that is less adhesive for that pollen. It kind of works. You really pay for it. So long-term, the answer is there isn't much we can do other than clean it about every 3 years.
Okay. And then what are these, not that it really matters, they're not that much money, but what are these analyzers? What do they do? Are they just water sampling things or something?
They are. You know, they're doing their level best in the water department to chase the localized, somewhat localized discoloration, iron and manganese.
Okay.
What we can't do is in-house identification of which wells are worse, which ones are better. Seasonally, as you pump a well, the iron and manganese levels will fluctuate, and we can't even quantify that because we don't have the analyzer in-house. So it's doing that. It's also will test free and total chlorine much quicker than they do now. It's a more advanced analyzer. So it's not just iron and manganese, but it's also for free and total chlorine, for ammonia. Ammonia ties into chlorine. You can't hit the chlorine curve unless you know the ammonia. It's a long story, but you have to burn off the ammonia to then get to the residual on the bell curve.
My eyes are glazing over, man.
Yeah. So it's a tool. It's a tool for diagnostics, basically, for the water department. There's also another analyzer in there for SWITs, right? Am I getting my colors straight,
You got a
Mike?
PPA analyzer and CO2.
The PPA analyzer, two different analyzers. The reason for that is we don't have an analyzer at SWITs, an online process analyzer. What this does is it ties into SCADA with a 4 to 20 milliamp loop, basically telling us every minute in SCADA what the level of chlorine is. If you don't have that, the DNR says you will not keep that open on weekends, believe it or not. So for the last, since that tower was built, believe it or not, every Friday we go and shut that tank off. Every Monday we go shut it off. It is a requirement of the DNR water standards, that because we're not testing that every day and we don't have that online processor analyzer there, that is a forever maintenance task that you have to do. So it gets rid of that task, and it also gives us a 24-hour rolling tabulation of the chlorine residual at that tower. So it's a kind of a no-brainer. It almost pays for itself.
Okay. And so the last question on the system expansion, I know you got information here, and I don't keep up with the water system, but I've heard a lot of complaints over time. I thought a loop system might be part of the issue over around the end of Grand Lakes. And so I guess what my question is, I'm surprised we're not maybe, I don't think it's over in that area that we're doing this. Looks like it's down Three Seasons Road. I didn't realize we had a bigger issue down Three Seasons Road, or maybe it's just a lot more money to do Grand Lakes. I'm curious why this is not Grand Lakes, if that was the right answer.
This is born out of two reasons. One is the one you mentioned for water quality. The other one, which is I think more pressing, is that there's, if you look on the sheet, let's say in Three Seasons, if that electronics would be better, but if we have a break here, this whole cave, this whole area is out of water. And why? Because there's no backfeed, right? So basically you have a branch and you have these fingers that go out. That's just typical here to our water system because of topography. You have this big long arm with nothing else feeding it, right? No potential for backfeeding it from another neighborhood. So you have this entire Three Seasons stick all the way out until it actually goes further than my picture. This whole area is out of water. Hundreds and hundreds of units are out of water because of a very isolated main break. And this happened in 2019 where we had hundreds and hundreds of people out. They did their best to get it back in service, and then there was a boil order that went with it, never popular. So what this does is basically allow for a back looping from here to here, so we can backfeed anyone that's not immediately affected actually with that main break. And the only reason I can theorize is why they didn't do it is they looked at that property and go, that's probably going to develop, we'll stick it on the developer. But in the meantime, as problems arise, it's just good distribution mapping, it's good distribution engineering to have these loops in. There are a number of them that aren't in. This is one of the largest, if not the largest, non-looped stick in the city. The one you mentioned is also on that list, but we're going with the low-hanging fruit first. And this is one of the largest non-loop sticks that we have. There's another one by Walmart. There's several due again to the lake and the caves that outstretch. And so the water system follows the topography. And if you don't make these little interties, you can have a main break with hundreds of people out that really don't need to be. So this is, again, it's just the first and
So
one
this is
largest.
like chipping away at the
That's
bigger
right.
problem. And so given the fact that this is quote the largest one, does that mean that probably it will be a similar cost or less for future ones? Or the other ones we're kind of pushing off because they're like a huge number? I'm curious what might be coming.
Tough to say, and I didn't get into drill into the details of this estimate, whether it was open cut or HDP or even the size. I mean, for this, I would put in a 12-inch and oversize it because, yeah, it's probably going to develop. It's better to oversize. In the future, tough to say. Again, here with plastics, prices going up. I mean, this $235,000. If they would have done this in the get-go, it would have been.
No, I understand. I'm just wondering if the others are a lot bigger.
You
said this was a big one, so
this is a big one. To answer your
cost
question
standpoint?
better, it's probably one of the largest. Some of them are quite cheap. Some of them we're probably going to do in-house.
Okay, good.
They're short stretches. This is probably the largest, potentially the largest one we're ever going to see.
That's all I have.
Yes, Phyllis?
For a number of years, and I know it's been a trial and error process as far as flushing the water lines, and I'm referring to the brown water into the Grand Glaze and over there at Stone Bridge, I should say, condos off of Dude Ranch. I did not hear any complaints this year, but I just wondered, I mean, have we resolved that or what's going on with it? Probably not.
The fundamental change that happened this year is Swiss Well 3. Okay,
Is what, sir?
Swiss Well number 3.
Okay,
We got lucky enough that well we tapped a great aquifer that was less in manganese.
That's our new well.
Is that the new one?
That's a new one.
Yep.
Okay.
Less in manganese than all the other wells. We
Combined.
just got lucky. And we got really good water. And it's far, far better quality water. So we're leaning on that one really heavy because of its high quality. And that's what you're seeing. It's not that we're flushing more necessarily. It's that we got lucky and we got one well that's really high quality and we are using the heck out of it. So that may be what you're seeing.
Didn't you also have one of the condo complexes where you convinced them to allow you to put in a piece of equipment that allowed you to flush it?
Yes, there's a number of blow-ups we're at, I wouldn't say we added them, we're just utilizing them more. Also, our water foreman has been, he's on his way out, but he was here 4 years, and he got really good at reading the tea leaves as to which ones every year we're gonna have a problem where the iron and manganese were gonna settle out of solution. So he was preemptively going in and flushing those before. He was getting good at that. So it was a combination of things, but we got really lucky with Swiss Well 3 to answer your question.
well, and I know there was some good collaboration or cooperation, I should say, whenever the city was going out there to flush, that they would notify the maintenance guy or there at the condos so that they could be doing the same thing simultaneously, which really helped. And they said, well, it's basically in the springtime, from being through the winter and fewer usages, or residents during the winter, and all of a sudden it's built up, and then the springtime,
That's right.
it was a problem.
It does take high-level coordination because we had one instance this spring with a condo complex that filled their pool before the water department could get out there. In fact, it was 2 or 3 days before, and they jumped the gun. It takes a high-level coordination, and it's a pain, to be honest. And they filled their pool before the water department got there, and that pool was brown. Could not see 12 inches into the pool surface.
Oh, boy.
Is that on them? Kinda. I'd love to deliver water quality that was, completely devoid of iron and manganese. We don't have the capacity to do that yet. In an exploratory way, we're kind of looking into small package treatment plants down the road. That's a whole nother discussion for sure. But that's absolutely a challenge. If they fill their pool, the water department does localized flushing, that's what you're going to get. Yep.
That might be an issue that, we can address as we talk about our ARPA funds. Water and sewer definitely, projects that ARPA funds can be used for.
The one thing I did want to add is, we still have these other 2 wells that are full of it. We can't just rely on the one new well forever. So this problem doesn't go away. It's simply that we've kind of found a way around it for right now.
Right.
So long term, we still need to find a solution if we want to continue to use wells number 1 and 2 on the Swiss Village Tower. As he said, we now almost exclusively use the new well.
And that was there because of increased capacity and future capacity,
Correct.
right?
Any hydro, I would add too, that any hydrogeologist will tell you, if you work one well really hard, you're gonna pull the other well, the other aquifer water into it
It'll suck in.
and sully it. Yeah, that's right.
So- Are you, as you're bringing that up, Mike, I appreciate the heads up. Does that mean you're thinking we're gonna need more new wells versus we're gonna need things to do, how would I say, better product from the existing wells?
Well, I do believe that we put some money into the engineering side of things to have Cochrane help us look at some possible solutions in 2022. So obviously we don't have that yet, but that we're looking into that as well.
Okay.
Okay, thank you.
Anyone else? Kevin?
The cleaning of the tower, so that's exterior, right?
Exterior.
Nothing interior at all? No. Strictly cosmetics?
Yeah, it's exactly a cosmetic issue. Doesn't affect water quality. It's just doesn't look great, especially out the freeway like that.
Does anybody remember if we had this problem before the expressway was put in? It's really close to the highway, and I wonder, there's a lot of dirt gets disturbed along that expressway. Do we have any idea if this occurred as the expressway came in? I
As
know that's
long
industry.
as I can remember, and I'd have to go back and work on budget close with Public Works, Swiss Village has, as far as I remember, always been on a
Always.
tighter rotation.
Okay.
I don't know that I can remember it changing because of the highway.
Anything else? All right, seeing none, we're done with capital, so do we have a motion to accept the capital for the sewer department as submitted?
Water.
Water, excuse me. I was looking at, jumped down.
So
Water
moved.
department.
So
All right,
approved.
we have a motion from Phyllis, we have a second from Kevin, all in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? All right, let's move on to sewer.
Summary, sewer fund summaries, page 79, with revenue and expenses beginning on 81. I think we do have some follow-up information on personnel from Kevin. There is a request for additional people in O&M, just real quick, so we can just move fluidly to that one. The sewer did have an increase, repair system and pump repair, and some of the admin was really their main O&M increases over estimate year-end for 2021.
So the repair system is just again, budget, the whole point of the budget is for you to develop a plan. You would probably not want to see me continuing to ask for budget amendments, so that's just reflecting what I've seen since I've been here to maintain the system as we need to. That's really about it as far as system repair and pump maintenance. The 2 upticks. If there's any questions, I'll move to personnel.
You had made some, okay, we're going to talk about that, we're going to talk about personnel. Okay, I'm sorry.
Is there anything that we can do from a money standpoint to help solve your supply chain concerns? I mean, I know it's all out there. I'm tired of it already.
Yeah, used to it.
Is there
Christmas
anything?
is
Is there anything that that we need to be doing to make sure you've got enough money that you need to buy more supplies or try to get a bigger supply? And that's not just with this. I wanted to bring it up earlier.
There's, fortunately, as we did with KK37, we paid a boatload more money per pump. I think it was $12,000 to to get that pump here, to bump everyone else to the front of the line. We couldn't afford to do that on an everyday basis. We just can't. We did it because we needed to, because those pumps were in desperate need. But to operationally do that, there's really not a lot you can do other than try and stay in front of that and have enough inventory, again, to your point, and have enough pumps on the shelf that you could rebuild. Even if you can rebuild them, if you can get parts of them, we save them. But there's no easy answer to that. That is a problem, and everyone's facing it. But there's no easy button for that. It's just, you've got to just be out in front of it and realize that it's happening. We are gonna have our pump inventory coming up here in January, and that's gonna be a huge part of it.
Actually, we're gonna do it in December.
Just sort of separate,
But
done by January.
in order to try and get things here as quickly as we can, probably the same meeting that you guys approved the budget on, we will have our inventory of replacement, so we can get that out to Derek Brandt with municipal equipment as quick as we can. Even before Kevin got here this year, when I was over there, I had come to you guys in January for mine, not realizing what was happening at the time, and we didn't get all of our pumps in until June.
Right.
So the hope is that we come earlier this year, and hopefully some of those supply chain issues are getting better, and we'll be able to turn that around quicker.
We are wanting to repeat what Mike did by mistake because it was genius. It ended up being a lifesaver. And we're looking to do that again, getting a full inventory and get these things out and ordered as quickly as you can, because for 6 months out, that's not typical, and it's getting worse. So we're looking to do just that again.
I just wondered, Ms. Mitchell, if there's anything we can do to help you with that process, or
Only
Did you have a question?
I've got a few line item questions for quick clarification that you can summarize in 20 words or less.
I'll try.
So I can try to pretend like I understand what you're saying. Professional services, why the drastic increase from 20,000 to 185? Am I not following this correctly? Line item,
Sorry.
operations and maintenance.
line item, about professional services.
3,300, if that helps.
733,800.
Okay, is that how you do it? Okay.
Professional services is where locates reside. We had a situation where it was highly lopsided. We didn't have the transportation. What's professional services?
Do you have your detail?
This was, Gina, there was also another department that had professional service, because I had asked you about this last week.
Parks and Rec.
Parks and Rec.
That professional service was hopefully the master plan of work. So,
I knew there was somebody else I remember asking her about.
just
Gina,
making sure I didn't make a,
Gina, I do apologize. We don't have the detail for our O&M in front of you. Can you give me a breakdown real quick of what the
I'm
182?
looking for it. I'm ahead of you.
Well, because you're ended at 20, previous year 37,405, for 2022 at 182,500.
I'm
That's,
just making sure that I didn't. Assessment. It said add assessment.
Oh, is that the manganese assessment, or at least part
So
of it?
that's probably, yeah, it says add assessment, hold on.
Manganese wouldn't be in sewer, would it?
No, it's-
Just to another,
Oh, that's your pump assessment.
Thank you.
There's
Okay.
a lot of big departments, a lot of stuff. Thanks for your patience.
Can't remember, I know you can't remember everything.
Sorry, yeah. Sewer assessment.
it says add assessment.
That is a proposed assessment of all three-phase stations. That, and bear with
Oh,
me.
65 stations, 2,500 per. Better numbers coming.
Yep, that is 184 pumps. So what we've
Contracted service.
proposed is, and I've got somewhere in my file, some details on that. But basically, off the cuff, It is a assessment of our largest stations. It equals 184 pumps. It breaks down to $2,000 per station for techs, actual pump technicians, to go through and assess each pump. Now, not that it works, I mean pulling the volutes, taking calipers and measuring tolerances on the impellers. This is professional grade stuff to go through an amp, and we can do that, but they're gonna actually take the amp information and apply it to the original information of when that pump was built to determine its real actual age. They're gonna determine a GPM, they're gonna do drawdowns and do volumetric testing. So it's a detailed level approach, and why we're doing it is because things like KK37, I came to you with a budget amendment because not only were the pumps not good, there was holes in the pumps that you couldn't see, and I pumped that station all the way down. Question probably is can you do that? We could do that, but because of labor, it would probably take the better part of 18 months to 2 years to dedicate 2 personnel in the crane truck to go through and do that heavy lifting per se at each 3-phase station. No, this is just it's an admission of reality. It's not going to get done. For instance, we're doing a survey now, and nothing got done yesterday because we're doing a mechanical replumb. I don't want to get too far into the inside baseball stuff, but to realistically apply 2 people out of the 6 that I have right now. Again, I'm missing 2 because of some personnel issues. We're just too short-handed to do a project of that scope and size, and it's not just proficiency, but it's also labor. And actually, I think for $2,000 roughly per station for all those 3-phase stations, it would be a good catch ahead. It would be a good catch-up thing for me to do to assess again what pumps am I going to need, how fast am I going to need them, how long are these things going to run, instead of being, reactive. In a perfect world, I wish I could do it with the staff I have. It's an admission that I cannot, and that's what that number is.
So it's trying to be proactive to determine what kind of problems you got rather than waiting to be. The perfect world would be they're gonna come back and tell us all of them are great.
Yeah, you're good.
That's the perfect world. The likelihood is they're gonna come back and tell us that there's a certain percentage of them that's gonna have problems that are gonna go bad. And
that's correct, sir, and these are big ticket pumps. If these are failing, we need to know about them because they're big ticket items. These are not 5, 10 horse. These are big movers.
So these are 20 horse and above, or what would you say,
That's right.
generally?
That's right, 17 and above,
So,
all the way up to 150.
I'm sorry, Kevin. Go ahead.
Cindy, how does that put you when we have a sewer problem and we've done something like this? Is that add another notch on the good boy side of
absolutely.
insurance? When
Anything
they
that
want to
we
know
can
what
do.
you've done?
Yes, absolutely.
That's all.
How long will they take to assess?
Your question, I'm sorry.
Good question. Question was how long will this take? It will take 2 techs, roughly 35 days, full-time, 8 hours a day to go through our stations and do what we're asking them to do. So even on their side, it's a serious commitment, and it's a time consumer.
So they're doing something on the larger pumps that you're doing from a maintenance standpoint on just our lift stations or residential wall stations.
That's correct.
Right. And you started that, and when did you start that maintenance?
Started that about it. The push started in June. It's become a more expedient survey. I wanted them, I gave them a long list of stuff, and they were getting frustrated, and I finally found out I was being unreasonable. And sadly, I was being unreasonable with the requirements I was putting on them. And I'll speak to that a little bit more when I give the information of what we found so far. We're 51% done. We started this in June. They're getting frustrated because there's low-hanging fruit out there, really bad stuff, and I want to find out, and they want to find out the bad stuff instead of doing the PMing and stuff. And I finally agree with them. So that process is going to speed up. I hate to say it. They want to go through the first push. Many of these operators have never seen these stations, Any of these stations presumably haven't been seen in years. So it makes sense what they're saying, the data that come into the field, and so.
What's important is what they're saying.
That's right. So
And what they're finding is a lot of problems.
a lot of problems.
Rob, anything
Yes.
else? before we-
Odor control.
Sir,
I'm assuming the 50% decrease in budget is due to the new chemicals we discussed previously?
oh, that's correct. So with the chemical, Evoqua, call it chemical-based odor control, with the budget we have, we can, well, we're coming to the, help me out, Mike, so sands, we got the big one at sands.
Yeah.
That's not in the Evoqua budget.
No, that's in capital.
That's
So,
in capital.
so essentially, what Kevin's plan is, if we can do it before the Evoqua contract expires. The Evoqua contract expires in April. And so the plan, in a perfect world, would be that we would be completely out of the odor control chemical business by April. And then we can just say, okay, Evoqua, come pick up all of your rental equipment, pick up all your chemicals, thanks and have a nice day. But that's ambitious. That's very ambitious. So what we've done is we've padded odor control a little bit because there's a likelihood that we're going to need them for a little longer into the summer before we can make sure that we have all the digesters kind of worked out. We have Sands up and running with the new digester. Right now, he's already working on the KK37 digester, which the board has already approved. And then we have 3 or 4 other sites out there, some of which that one of which we've already completely eliminated, which is Passover. We've been using a smaller version of a digester in that station most of the summer, and it has worked. It's one of the reasons why we are moving forward with everything, because we've seen this work. There is still the Dude Ranch site. There's still the KK114 site. Those we think we can resolve with the same way we did Passover, with smaller versions. It's not going to require some big capital purchase. And then, of course, there are also the carbon filters that we have at the campground and at the cars site. Those, we're probably always going to have to buy carbon from someone. So I don't know exactly how that's going to work all yet. But the point, to get back to what you said, Bob, is there's money in there for odor control so that we can make sure, what we don't want is to cut off odor control and us not be ready to move to the other. And then all of a sudden we've got a 3 or 4 month gap in the heart of summer when it's like, uh-oh. So this is our way of kind of overlapping the two options, the old chemical version of odor control with the new aeration and UV odor control, so that we can make sure that you guys aren't getting called and Kevin's not getting called, so that we can make sure that we have a nice smooth summer. And then beyond that, as Kevin had said when we talked about KK37, the savings are tremendous over a 5, 6, 7 year period. You're talking hundreds of thousands of dollars of savings by moving in this direction. So that's what that is, sir.
Does this correlate at all with the increase in equipment rental and leasing because of that Evoqua contract where we're renting? Or is part of that rental agreement with
The
them?
rental agreement is rolled into the Evoqua.
Okay.
Yeah, we pay.
Because we are 30% increase from this year to next year, and I'm thinking that must be tied in because of that equipment leasing? Or that rental lease, et cetera?
What line are
I'm
you
looking at
talking
rental lease equipment from 100,000 to 150.
You
That's
are,
pump repair.
yeah, you're one line over, sir.
Wrong line.
Yeah.
We're on that.
Yeah.
Yeah, sometimes you don't really know these.
Sorry.
Yeah.
Just to
You look at me
reiterate,
longer all the
I wish
time.
there was lines all the way across this.
Yeah.
But it would be busy too.
Teasing. I think that it'd be nice if our lines went all the way across.
No, I heard.
Just one short thing about that odor control. That is something that Mike had put in as insurance, and I think it's a really good idea. However, my goal is to not touch it. if I used any of it, then I mean I partially failed. I don't want to use it, and I don't think I'll need to. As Mike said, it's ambitious, but I think we can do it.
You said it now.
I want to preface that. I want to preface that by saying that some of it is rental dollars. Some of it we cannot get out of. So there's a base amount, I can't remember exactly how much it is, that we're gonna have to spend through April.
Right.
You know what I mean? We have enough chemical now
We do.
that we may not need to ever buy chemical again because we can store it over the winter. We're not worried about that.
Okay.
But it's important to make sure that we have that safety net as we make this transition.
Those were my only questions. Thank you, gentlemen.
Tyler?
Hey, Kevin, back on the big pump project. So if I did the math right, that's $285 per tech hour, 8 hours a day, times 2 techs, times 35 days. $285 an hour?
Well,
That seems high to me.
You're talking 2 techs with 2 hotel rooms and all live here, right? So then you got travel time. They live here for.
Now that full amount, 20,000 is that other professional services, so that is
Yeah.
162.5.
Right, I only based my calculation
So
on.
that maybe lower your a little bit, but
Okay.
20,000.
No, I didn't think about the.
They don't live here, they're from Jeff City, they're grudgingly doing this because they can see the writing on the walls and there's money in it for them because they're gonna find stuff that's bad when that's what they want them to do, but yeah, that, you have to factor in if they don't live here, they're.
Plus equipment, costs associated with that.
And for what it's worth, the other 20,000 that Gina mentioned,
I just said this the normal
Yeah.
professional service
Yeah.
rent line.
Anything else, Tyler? Okay, Richard?
So I guess, Kevin, the question I would have is do you see this as a, for lack of a better term, a stopgap, a bridge, whatever, to a point where we don't need to do this the next year, hopefully, and we will be able to begin doing this in-house over time? You just need to catch up, and because this is some high dollar knowledge, okay? And I realize that we need to be somewhat proactive, and timing's good with some funding and things like that. But at the same time, what I want to make sure I'm hearing is, or believing is that we're not going to see professional services of $160,000 next year.
No, I view this as a one-time. If we have to do this again, we get serious problems. This is, again, a catch-up measure and not something I'm falling back on as a routine. This is a cry for help, if you will, a realization that we're in trouble.
Well, it's also a mechanism to help you determine what your real problems are, something that we have not done in the past, so that we can determine what we need to do in the future, both with manpower and also with, equipment.
I am begrudgingly saying that this is the right thing to do, understanding what Kevin has been up against. And it's hit me right between the eyes, how bad the system has gotten. And that's unfortunate, but it is what it is. And I applaud Kevin for trying to set the standard high. And even though he's asking for a lot of money, I'm hoping that he don't ask for this every year, because don't get used to it.
No take.
Anything else, Richard?
No, that's it.
Phyllis?
I just had a question. I'm looking at the health insurance jump. Is that because there was more coverage per personnel or something? I mean, from 94,000 to 160,000.
Yeah, it's gonna be a combination of a few
I'm sorry.
things. It'll be a combination of a few things. First, I've budgeted 2 new additional employees. Also, the public, Kevin's position was originally budgeted at a quarter, because part of it was going to the engineering department. However, it was applied to 3 departments versus 4 departments. And then there's been changes. We've had new additions with babies coming onto and being married. So they've gone from employee-only insurance to spouse coverage or family coverage. We had some employees that left that opted out, and the new employees have taken coverage. So it's been a combination from that department.
Okay, thank you.
So on that topic, do you want to move to the overall changes in employee requests so we can cross that?
Let's finish O&M before we do that.
Oh, that was in personnel.
Okay, it was, but I thought it was all related to O&M. And if not, we can move to personnel. Any other questions as they relate to O&M? Because that.
Oh, when I look at O&M in this section, personnel.
Right, yeah, I'm just looking at, it's been bouncing all over expenses. Okay. No more O&M questions, so let's move on to personnel.
So,
Do they have that already?
yeah, if you have the, you can read along if you wish. So, wise, additional sewer staffing needed. The Osage Beach Sewer Department currently has an authorized staff of 8 full-time employees or FTEs, including 1 sewer department lead position, creating a ratio of 1 to 8. While there's no correct ratio of administrative support staff to technical operational staff, these ratios are dependent upon such factors as the number of sites tasked to maintain, the geographical dispersion of said infrastructure, service age of the system, and how much of the system is actually communicating with supervisory control or SCADA. Intuitively, the work performed should dictate the management to ratio staff, not a one-size-fits-all formula. Technologically complicated processes require smaller management ratios since there is a greater need for interactive coaching and communication. However, in my experience with Public Works, a typical ratio of support staff to technical operational staff varies between 1.1 to 5, such as currently exists with the Water Department, and 1 to 7, which also currently exists in the Transportation Department. For small to medium-sized infrastructure maintenance organizations, the current staffing ratio of 1 to 8 would be sufficient. However, many unique extenuating circumstances of the Osage Beach sewer system dictate the need for full-time administrative support position in addition to the existing field supervisor or sewer department lead and additional field service labor. So just briefly, what we maintain, we all know this for the most part. City of Osage Beach maintains 1,300 lift stations, 7 odor control facilities, not for long, 6 generators and 2 EQ basins. So I'm not counting odor control or generators or any of that. I'm just counting sites. Again, that's 1 operator to 185 stations. Just for so a few comparisons, we ran into this the other day. City of Lake Ozark has 4 employees for 400 pump stations, creating a ratio of 1 to 100. City of Camden, 3 sewer employees for 36 stations. They don't do any grinders at all. Those are all just major stations. That creates a ratio of 1 to 12. City of Chanhassen, I had to add because that's where I just spent the last 13 years of my life. We have 5 sewer collection system operators and 33 lift stations. They were all on SCADA, by the way. They don't maintain any grinders or anything on private property. That created a ratio of 1 to 7. And just about that, just briefly, I had 3 sewer spills in my 13 years in the city of Chanhassen, and it's kind of a scarlet letter, honestly. It's something even the surrounding communities know you filled one out because it makes its way around. In the past 2 weeks, I've had 3. So just to give you a color difference between systems that have adequate maintenance and the ones that are just kind of flying by the seat of their pants the way we do because of the volume that we incur. So what would the sewer department superintendent do? There's a number of things here, and this reads like a job description because that's what it is. He does everything you think you do. Supervises, directs, evaluates, assigns staff, oversees work of subordinate supervisors. Just for the sake of time, I'm not going to read through those, but you can peruse those. This is the basic guidelines or parameters in which this employee does his tasks, and there are numerous. Skipping down to the end, if you will, by many metrics, we are simply going in the wrong direction. So reported Missouri DNR sanitary sewage or spills, SSOs as we call them, which I just mentioned. You can see in 2018 we're at 56, and then there we are at 2021. We have 65 days left in the year by that metric. We're not doing well. Non-operating sewer pumps found in the system. Its estimated replacement cost is there. Again, that survey is half complete. If that survey remains linear, got the replacement cost there.
Can I stop you for a minute? Because I think it's important that the board understands that what he has in that particular paragraph, those dollars are not in your budget,
They're not.
okay?
The 380?
They're not.
replacing the pumps that he has found there, those dollars are not in your budget currently. That is going to be something that we will be talking about.
$750,000.
Yeah, that's something that we will be talking about when we get to the whole ARPA funds or whatever discussion that we have. So go ahead, Kevin.
Yeah,
I just
no,
want to make sure we
great point.
understood that.
I didn't make that point, and that was a great point. And as it says, I haven't quantified this yet. This is just what I know.
So if I can, is that okay?
Sure.
I guess you got the 750 by doubling this because we're 51%.
No, I simply took, it says,
Oh, the $750 million.
it says, yeah,
Oh, I see.
$750 of $1 billion.
It's the same way, it's extrapolation.
Right.
If we know we need to spend $380,000, and much as I don't want to spend it, then why aren't we budgeting to do so unless we're confident ARPA is what we're going to use?
There should be no confidence on ARPA because I'm still putting together lists, but.
Absolutely, and the answer to that is they just started this project. We're giving you the information as it's coming out. So when we put our budget together, they hadn't even started this project. So we're trying to provide this information as quickly as we can.
Okay.
But
So I don't know what the rest of the board thinks, but I would suggest, as much as I hate to say it, we need to make a budget amendment before we have to do a formal budget amendment.
It's up to the
for something.
department how they want to change their
I
request.
mean, I don't know that we need to go to
Yeah.
750 because it may change, but I at least 400,000, I would
It's a
think.
beginning.
Yeah. Or based on what we're already finding, you might be better off at 500,000.
I'm not arguing that's something.
Right.
Mhm.
Yes, Tyler.
If we do, go ahead, that's okay. If we do that, does that eliminate the possibility of the ARPA money for it?
No,
When,
ARPA is not
when,
like a
when are we
typical.
gonna make the decision on what we're gonna do with ARPA?
I plan to present. to
March,
the-
April?
Can we get back on base to the personnel request first?
And
before we
I
discuss
plan
ARPA?
to make a strategic planning session no earlier than January with the board with suggestions for ARPA.
I kind of got us off track there, I
And
apologize.
I'm sorry to interject, let's go back on track. Please.
So having said that, the next metric I have here is the number of 911 communication centers after hour calls to the sewer department personnel that are on call. So these are after 8 hours of work. The number is 300 as of yesterday. So we're averaging
One a day, right?
more than, one a day. This is an important number as it undermines the specific human toll in this metric. As employee retention becomes a primary goal for our city as an organization in every city, the Sewer on Call program was identified as one of the leading factors in recent exit interviews as the reason for separating from the city. This reinforces the need for additional sewer staffing, as each additional sewer employee allows for more critical break time before being on call again. And, that is, I'm not gonna lie, it's the guys dread going on call, and I don't blame them. To give you a little color, I get in around between 6:30 and 7. It's not unusual to see a sewer department employee sleeping across 2 office chairs. Now, why is that? It's because he probably got called at 3 a.m. He 40-minute drove in. Now it's 4:30, maybe it took care, maybe it's 5, but now he makes the decision, do I drive back 40 minutes back home to pour a cup of coffee and eat a burrito and then go turn around? Probably not. So what he does, he crashes on the floor, he sleeps in a truck. This is not uncommon. And this is the human toll that we don't talk a lot about. No, this is the grind, day after day, week after week, that these guys do. And the smaller the staff, the harder it is on these guys. And I don't want, and make no mistake, they're on call and then they're on backup. When they're on backup, all bets are off too. Because oftentimes the primary operator gets into a situation, he's got to bring the pumper truck. Now he's calling out the backup. And sometimes even a third person if they're really in a mess. So there's really no safe place for these guys. And to say that this is, well, they're being compensated a time and a half, trust me, most of these guys would give it up today if they had a choice, this time and a half stuff. You can identify the people on call because they have raccoon rings around their eyes. They're just kind of not there. You can tell, you can know who's on call by looking at them. Because again, one of these a day, sometimes you get none, sometimes you get 3 a night, and you didn't sleep. And you're driving around, and it's not necessarily a safe thing, and it's not a comfortable thing. So I just wanted to add that piece that we don't talk a lot about, staffing. So in conclusion, it took many years of neglect to produce this issue, but unfortunately, we don't have years to remedy this. As fundamental stewards of the environment, the sewer department is tasked to safeguard our most valuable natural asset, the Lake of the Ozark. Not maintaining our assets to the highest degree, we also expose the city to obvious financial legal liabilities that consume public dollars and countless staffing hours. See, Cindy? We as an organization can spend money in a reactive sense, or, as I prefer, invest money in a system improvement. This additional staffing, I believe, is an investment, a human one. We can and try to do better.
Any questions? Yes, Bob.
It's not a question, it's a comment. I've already 100% given my back into wanting to increase the staffing. But I just want to say, in general, this is my personal opinion, that any time a department head comes to us requesting more staff, they're basically coming to us saying, I do not have the personnel or the effective tools to keep my department successful. To me, I don't want to say it's a cry for help, but basically they're coming to us as the board saying, I don't have the right tools in my toolbox to keep this department going. And anytime we question those, yes, we should question all expenses, but when it comes to labor and employees, I think we walk a fine line between asking serious questions and micromanaging, because we're not the ones in the grind. We're not the ones running that department. And I think this is overall for all departments, because I think in my short tenure here, we've had too many discussions and questioning people's employee requests or hours requests. And once again, we're not the people doing the job, so we have to take their word verbatim that we need more staffing for this department, and not just Public Works, all departments. That's all I have to say.
Well, and to build on that, you have to applaud Kevin for, doing this, because I think in the past, we don't know what necessarily has caused some of the problems that we've had with this system. But my guess is that he nailed it, and he's trying to get out from under it. Okay, and I think this is the same situation, and I appreciate you recognizing that this is not just this one department. So, all right, Kevin.
Very well said, Bob. Thank you.
Richard?
I think it's well said, and I completely agree, but I've been doing one question, and I'll tell you one question. So we don't have metrics. Been asking for metrics for 3 or 4 years. Kevin actually brought some metrics in. I'm not sure they're the best ones, but that's okay. But at least there may be some other ways. I'm not here to, but bottom line is, bring this kind of stuff to us when you ask for an employee, you're probably gonna get it, okay? Don't usually see this. Haven't ever seen this before. And the discussions, which I'd much not really like to have, but I trust that they need them. I just like for them to verify that. And I think Kevin's done a great job in verifying.
Yes.
Yeah, and I think he has. And one of the problems is trying to bring metrics on information that you don't have because you haven't been able to identify all the problems. Okay? So while I understand, part of that comment, Richard, you can't give full metric information unless you have it.
I do have one more question. This is actually going back to Cindy. We do a lot of market analysis as far as our pay scales, our job responsibilities, et cetera. But do we have any metrics or analysis on our different departments as far as, based on this population size, based on the infrastructure you have for your sewer and water department, you should have X amount of employees in that department? Is there anything that gives us a guideline department by department?
The
Well, we
police
just did the
department,
police
Yeah,
assessment.
and then that's,
No
I want to say that it's easy, but that to me seems like that'd be easy.
no
Yeah.
other
Information.
department's been done, but there are, cities do regularly, just like the police assessment should be done every few years. They make that same thing for like your bigger departments, Public Works would be the next. I mean, they
Okay,
do-
because it seems like
We have never.
there'd be somebody that would come
done
back
that for
saying,
Public
based on your
Works.
infrastructure, what they have under that department, you should have 12 employees, you should have 15, 5, just something we could get
We have
more.
never done that for
Okay.
Public
The only
Works.
problem is that I went through that exercise as fire chief. And the only problem for this area is, as we all know it, they say, now the fire district was bigger, but, the city, you got 4,500 people? You don't need all these police, you don't need all this stuff. Well, wait a second here. No, we got 4,500 people that live here and say they live here. Let me tell you about these other 175,000 that come down.
Every weekend.
And that's
6 months out of the year.
that's when these people do these things, they're like, we don't know that, because that is so even though I hear what you say, Bob, it's very difficult to get a good handle with that because of that.
Well, the group that did our police study, they
Well,
specialized in
okay.
that. They peeled the onion back exactly for that reason.
If I could add to that, I think that as we have added technology and the ability to track and so forth, we've got some information that helps demonstrate what the metrics would be and what possibly they should be because we don't have the staffing. And I'm not convinced that this is kind of the first thing that we've seen from that. So if we can utilize those resources, I think we can determine what the right staffing is versus how do we don't find it in 4,000 people, in towns that out there that are 4,000 9 months a year and 170,000, 3 months a year. So
Well, I think
another reason for
something we
this.
should put on our radar for further discussion.
Is there any additional discussion on the requested personnel?
Oh,
And if-
no, not personal.
Okay, and if there is none, do I have a motion to approve the personnel as requested?
I'll make that motion,
We have
please.
a motion,
A second.
second. All right, Richard, all in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? All right, let's move on to open capital for sewer.
If you're following along in the summary that I handed out, sewer capital, there's only one item that has direct revenue. I'm gonna let the department, there's no grants or anything in this particular one, so.
Okay, questions from the board on capital? You'd like explanation on Richard?
I don't need an explanation necessarily. I do have a question about unserved area anyhow. David, you guys looked at this, and is this your engineer's estimate, or did we just take a swag and that's okay if we did?
This was an engineer's estimate based off the footage of sewer and grinder stations that need to be put in.
Because it didn't, I don't know how far it's going, but maybe there's only 4 or 5 residences down there, is that right? That aren't being currently served?
My estimate here says that there were 6 new grinder stations needed.
6, okay,
6
4 or 5,
properties.
but maybe it's 6.
And it's about 1,300 feet of force main to get them all served.
Okay, and so anybody that happens to know, does this potentially, I'm curious here, I didn't see, is there some undeveloped area in this? It seems like there's some undeveloped, but maybe it's not much that could, the sewer could.
I'm gonna totally make an assumption here, not much, but it
Not
is like
much
on
down
the
here,
edge
yeah.
of the city, it's on the, yeah.
There's not much down.
What I did ask the
We
departments
had
to
to
do,
do
because last year, that's why I created just a category unserved areas, because we really needed to go through the exercise of identifying all our pockets. Are they pockets because, one, they just not follow current ordinances, or are they pockets because they're truly unserved because we're down to the sections of the city that are either geographically challenged or geography,
They're expensive.
hillside, they're expensive, yes. So anyway, the staff did that with help of Cochrane, mapped them out, identified them, and I said, so when we go forward, pick the priority, and if it happens to still be this priority, fine, but we did identify the different areas. So at that time, the Cochrane, as he stated, they did a engineer's estimate.
All I can say is for 15 years, I've been saying we need to get all unserved. And John Ballard and I had just long discussions about this, and the way he's doing the system was we were going to end up in this situation. And I'm glad we finally started back away against it.
So every year, we should be chipping away, hopefully at a
Okay.
few, so.
That's all I have.
All right, any other questions on capital? Well, if there are none, is there a motion to approve the capital request for sewer as submitted? Kevin, do I have a second?
Second.
Richard, any further discussion? If none, is all in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? All right, before we get into airports, Lucy Fine being the next, let's take about a 5-minute break.
Looking to
Okay,
rotate
folks,
through.
let's go ahead and get started.
That's what that's.
Kevin mentioned something to me during the break, and quite frankly, I did not clarify it. So I would like to bring it back up and get the board's direction on it. And it had to do with some of the issues that are being found as they're doing their maintenance checks on some of the smaller stations. And we talked about putting some money in. No money has been identified, but the number ran anywhere between $400,000 and $750,000. And quite frankly, in what I asked you all to clarify or to approve, in my mind, did not include that. So I would like to address it. I would like to get you all to come up with a recommended amount, and then I've asked for your approval to add that to the capital budget being proposed for sewer.
So
Okay.
can I ask Kevin a question?
Yes, please.
So there is some, maybe there's none of that to cover what you're finding, but there's some run rate in the budget for repairs and maintenances and so forth.
Yes, sir.
Okay. So do you feel, based on, let's just say this, let's assume that we were all done and we did have $750,000 in needs, okay? Based just on those assessments, okay? Do we need 750,000 more? Do we need 400,000 more? 500? And I know that's a quick off the top of your head, but do we need the full 750 based on this current run rate?
Again, it's crystal ball work, but
It's all it is. It's all you can do, best you can do.
it could be more. It could be less. But again, you see what I did.
What are you reasonably comfortable with right now?
I hate to ask for something I'm not gonna use. And I know we're pressed for time here, so
But we know we need 380.
we know it's 380.
Can I ask Kevin a quick question I
Sure.
think is relevant? Kevin, do we have the manpower to get all that done in 1 year?
No. I had a real brief discussion, with Municipal Pump, their supplier of our spec pump, and he said, really? I go, yeah, well, okay, we could do this, we could do that, we can get when these pumps come in again, when these pumps come in, if we were to order them. Probably talking midsummer, hopefully, optimistically, he would install these in one massive push. He would have people stay in hotels, and that's all they do is drop all these in one after another for 9 hours, 10 hours a day. Otherwise, it's just too much. It's just too much. This is something that has to be just done.
For this year,
No, Kevin, I'm talking about the ones that were, the smaller pumps that we're finding in our small residential lift stations, those issues, as opposed to the group that's coming in.
Oh,
to
I
do the
see,
analysis.
sorry.
I'm sorry.
Transpose one to the other.
Right, right.
Maybe. I hate to say the answer. It's hard to tell what, the demands of the system are gonna be at the time. If we were to do that, that means then you got that second half that we haven't done yet. Optimistically, yes, we could do that. We're gonna staff up a little bit, get our other staff that's out there back. Yeah, we can do that. I'm gonna say we can do that. We can do that with the grinders, the 2s and the 5s. Yeah, and that's the vast majority of these. Some are larger. One I know is 17. That's a crane truck. Got a couple 10s in there. Those would be under JCI. So, but to answer your question, yes, I think we could do it in-house.
Gina, is there amount of money in the long-range capital replacement for this? Over years?
Well, the capital replacement reserve fund for sewer is, your depreciation replacement.
Right.
What's the activity that's happened in the last couple of years is dwindling that down to low levels, which we expect that to happen. You go up and down. So if we want to add 400,000, whatever that number is, that'd be the first thing I would write my note on. Is like, how does that balance out?
Right.
There may just need to be more transfer in, because what I'm trying to avoid the department's doing is wiping out all that, and then we still have stuff that we know we need. I mean, it is what it is. Either we need other sources this year or down the road. But the last couple of years, we've tried to dump more money in, knowing more money was coming out. They're getting low. Is there $750,000 in that? No. Can there be 400? It would get it down to 0. So I would come back and show you how that would balance out. I don't have the exact dollars, but yes, there's money for that, but they are running low in that one because we have really hit the system hard with repair and maintenance, which is what the funds are for.
But CIT,
Well, right now, the transfer in from CIT for sewer is for this year at 1.2 million. 300 of that is the subsidy for debt, so about 900 represents the capital investment piece alone for sewer at this point.
So we know no matter what number we put in the budget, we know it's trying to make an educated guess.
There's no unrestricted
So we
in
know it's
sewer.
either gonna be over or he's gonna come back and ask for more.
It's
We can't-
either-
We can't tie him down anymore that, with where we're at. And I think, Kevin, you have to understand, for my vote, for this line item, I can accept that knowing you're gonna be off. I'm a bean counter that don't like to do that, but I can accept that in this situation. That just me speaking. 500,000 and go from there.
Is that a motion?
Yeah.
okay, yes,
I
Tyler,
have a question, and in the Cliff Notes version, under O&M, there's repair system for $772,000, and under, I guess, capital expenditure, there's lift station improvements for $645,000. Straighten my thoughts out, how those two are different than what we're talking about here.
Yeah, there's 3 lift stations that are in this packet.
Okay, the board packet. That's
They
the
include-
lift station improvements.
That is lift station improvements, Elbow Cave, Moongate, and Abaco, Aldermen, and Terra.
Okay, so what would the repair system be?
Repair system is anything that is not pumps, that is electrical panels, that is new equipment, that is, go ahead.
It does include all.
The accounting answer is the repair system is true O&M. You're repairing and replacing your system. They've got pump repairs and everything else. Lift station improvements is under your capital, which is true capital improvements. You're expanding or making the capacity bigger. It's a depreciable item investment, not just true repair and replace. So that's really the function of the expenditure is separated out, whether it's O&M or capital.
If I may add to that, so I think it's 772,000. That's what it takes our guys to operate the system on a normal basis. That also includes when we bring that big inventory. We're gonna bring a $250,000 to $300,000 inventory to you guys. That's included in that. But that's also every time Caleb goes out to a station and he finds something wrong, that's where we're paying that out of, if that makes it easier for you, Tyler. So that is just what we need to operate for the year to replace pumps, as we always have, to replace panels, to replace plumbing, to do all of that. But what Kevin has found is so daunting. We've never factored what he's looking for into that number before.
So with this number we're trying to come up with, would that typically have gone into this repair system line then?
Yes.
Yes.
Okay.
and I think maybe what you're trying to get to is we're already ordering some pumps through normal replacement, through wear and tear and so on and so forth. Keep in mind though that we may be looking at as much as $750,000. And the reality is we're talking right now, or we're getting close to getting a motion for a figure that I heard of around $500,000. So what's probably already there would cover some of those other costs, and it's still unknown.
Thank
Does
you.
that answer your question?
Yes.
Okay. Anyone else? All right, so do we have a motion for, I thought the amount was $500,000 to add to the capital budget for the replacement cost of the sewer pumps that are being found during this maintenance review. That's the best way to identify it. Do I have that motion?
I made it.
Okay, so I'll be sure, well, discussion got started, Kevin, so I want to be sure. All right, we have a motion on the floor. Do I have a second?
Second.
All right, Alderman Rose. All right, any further questions?
One really quick question.
Yes,
Is it
sir.
capital?
No,
Okay.
it's O and M.
Oh, and
All
M.
right, all right. That's the only question I have.
Okay, sorry.
That's
I
okay.
corrected
Okay,
Scrivener note.
we will make that adjustment to the O and M piece, okay? Instead of capital. Thanks for that clarity. All right, any additional comments? If none, all in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? All right, let's move on. Let's go to Lacey Fine.
Page 90 is the summary. I did note on the first 9, there were a couple just classifications on the reserves and unrestricted. I will get those. The bottom line is the same. I'll get that corrected. Page 92 are revenues, and starting on 93 are expenditures. Revenues, a big chunk of the revenue incoming for Lacey Fine are tied to grants, directly related to grants. Those will be listed on the capital list. So if there's questions about O and M, we'll start there. If not, we can, your capital list on the final page of that handout that was handed out last night.
There's a slight adjustment to employees, but I'm guessing that's.
Oh,
seasonal.
Sorry,
Got you.
yeah. I went too fast on personnel.
Are we actually adding employees, or what are we doing with that request?
This budget includes a part-time person that would go between both airports.
A little louder, please, Cindy, I'm sorry.
This is a budgeted, a part-time individual. We had a part-time individual 3 years ago, and then we haven't replaced that person. We're finding a need to replace that person. They will be, in addition to the seasonal staff, and they will go between both airports.
Yeah, because right now you're looking at about a quarter of a person for, requested for each airport, so. Okay,
Good catch.
all right. Any discussion on that? Since we did it with everyone else, let's go ahead and do it with them. Do I have a motion to accept the increase in personnel for AC Fine? That's requested. Bob, do I have a second?
Second.
Richard, any further discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? All right, that carries. Let's move on to O&M.
I have a question.
You have a question on O&M, Richard?
Yeah, I just want to make sure I'm stating it right. So give me one quick second here. It's janitorial service.
The big in the.
It's up 25%. Why would janitorial services be up 25%?
The janitorial service across all city did adjust some of the service levels, and so airports were affected just like City Hall and, City Hall and airports and Public Works. So if you notice in janitorial on all of them probably had some adjustments. Mike knows more of the details on that, but we did include some added scope from current contract in anticipation of it. So.
And then, do we know of maintenance and repair that we need to be doing that is jumping it by 300% basically?
So we're talking about janitorial?
No, Lacey Fine.
Maintenance repair.
Maintenance and repair line, sorry, I jumped quick. So maintenance repair line's going at Lacey Fine, if I'm reading this right, 10.2 to 32,000.
Ty, do you have your details?
Well, in 2020, it was actually that amount, so.
Yeah, that's when we fixed the trucks, I think.
No, that was 2020, that's when we did the roof on the Lincoln hangar.
Oh, okay.
So maintenance repair, recabling the localized system by DDT, and then usual maintenance and repair. So the added thing is the transportation system recabling for 20,000.
Yeah, it's our localizer, our pro system out there. They need to recable that system in order for it to get tolerance. So that was an extra it was 16,000 at the time when they gave me the first bid.
Okay. And so the other question, it looks like our, and I'm not, this report that you sent out, some people do read it. The one he sends to the FAA or whatever,
That was
right?
pretty neat after I got it straight
Right.
from the line.
But the way it's, 18, 19, 19, 20, 20, 21, is their year different than our fiscal year?
Yeah, it goes
Okay.
from September through August.
Okay, and so.
And I think that's just because that's how it lined up with our lease. When our lease started, it started in September, so they want those figures from September through August.
Because I see a big jump in the takeoffs and landing, which is great, and I'm not sure I'm seeing a jump, but maybe it is here, but just because of timing and the fuel cells, they jumped from 20, I guess they jumped from 20 to 21, so maybe that does match up. Okay, that's all I have. Thanks.
Any other questions on Lynn? All right, let's move on to capital.
The only part I have something in is the grants. There's 2 grant projects. I listed in the details the percentages. They're both MoDOT and FAA grants. The rest is you, Ty.
So those 2 grants, I know a lot of times that timing doesn't work right, but with these 2 grants that are here, we've already got them.
Yes, the apron's the one that we partially, it'll be a carryover from 2021, the one that'll be done hopefully Memorial Weekend? Yeah, now the runway overlay, engineering hasn't begun, that's in 2022, and then there'll be a construction piece that will be carried over in 2023.
Any other questions? Ty?
Yes, and once again, I'm asking for equipment. I'm asking to replace my 1989 jet fuel truck. I know you guys are tired of hearing about fuel trucks, but it's frustrating to see, these pieces of equipment we got in 2000. So we've been using it for 21 years. These airports just aren't the same that they were 20 years ago. We're seeing more and more business as far as bigger aircraft, more fuel cells. And, it's still operational, but you gotta know all the ins and outs of it. It's got 5 safety switches on it before you can actually turn the PTO on. You get out there ready to pump fuel, you're hooked up, PTO won't kick on, so you're going around jiggling all 5 safety switches.
Kicking it.
Kicking it to see which one to get it to go. Which, it's operational, but for how much longer, I don't know. I hate to keep coming to you guys asking for equipment like this, but I feel like it's a disservice to the employees if I don't, and a disservice to our customers if I don't. Sooner or later, we've got 4 fuel vehicles now between the 2 airports, so sooner or later, we're gonna have to start replacing this equipment somewhere down the line. And I don't have to have brand new spanking, shiny equipment right off the factory floor either. We put $200,000 in the budget for this particular fuel truck, and that would cover the cost of a brand new one. I've got quotes for a brand new one, anywhere from $178,000 to $210,000. I found on the market right now, I've got 3 used vehicles cornered. They're 2005, 2006 models, and I can get them. One of them I think was $80,000. These are completely refurbished machines. Had another one for $91,000, and then I think one was for $109,000. So I mean, we can cut the.
Is that what delivery costs and so forth?
That's about they estimated another $2,000 for delivery, depending on which one it is. So, I think it helped.
And you would be comfortable with those equipments?
Yes, I would. Yeah, sure would.
If I could just add one thing here, Ty is being modest here. Make no mistake, the vehicle that he is talking about is a safety hazard, okay? It has no rear brakes, and we can't fix the rear brakes. How much fuel does that truck hold, Ty?
2,200 gallons.
2,200 gallons. Do we know how much that weighs?
It's over 7 tons.
Okay. That truck has no rear brakes. That truck should not leave the tarmac, but we have to get it refueled.
No, That one doesn't, that one stays.
The point is that every time you get in that truck, all you have on it is the front brakes. Just keep that in mind, folks. In 6 months or less, that truck is gonna be parked. That's 80% of your revenue at the airport. Just wanna add that in.
That particular truck itself is gonna pump over 200,000 gallons of fuel this year.
I just,
Question?
I've got, well, more or less a comment, I guess. Although I appreciate you trying to be thrifty with the fuel truck, you're talking about a 2005, based on all the discussions we've had on vehicle replacements, which means the minute we get it, it's already on the vehicle replacement plan, because it's already 15 years old.
Good point.
Correct?
You're right, we just will keep pushing it.
In fact, by the time you get it, it'll be 17 years old, and therefore already well past when it should be reviewed for replacement.
But it's been refurbished, though.
But it's been refurbished, yes, but I'm just pointing that out, because we've had a lot of discussions on the vehicle replacement plan. I think it's a hard pill to swallow for $200,000, but to me, it's just like a new ambulance. We need it, therefore we shouldn't second guess the cost of it, because we try to cut corners, but once again, I'm confused on the refurbishing the vehicle. I mean, refurbished, but to what extent? I mean, the chassis is the chassis, you know what I'm saying, certain parts of it aren't refurbished, I mean, they're still the original parts.
That's true.
Technology.
And so that concerns me.
That's true.
You said 175,000 for a new one?
178, depending on how it's sold, 178 to 210.
Plus you have some delivery costs associated with that, whatever.
This particular one, I think that I had 4 years ago, I had set up the way we needed it for the different hoses and type. That came up to 184.
But it was 2,000 for delivery, you said?
That was for the used.
That's the
For the
usual.
used ones?
Yeah.
So it's a truck's a truck. Why is there a difference in a year of delivery? I don't understand that.
It's like, still gotta deliver it regardless of what.
They'll deliver one, they'll deliver it if you pay full price and get a brand new one, probably not charge you for that.
Oh,
But you buy a rental, you buy a used one, they're gonna wanna recover some costs, for the delivery aspect of it.
5,000 or
He's estimating two.
two?
Yeah.
That's what I said, two,
Yeah.
yeah.
But there's no delivery cost,
Yeah.
for the new vehicle. Yeah.
And one more question, I assume we're replacing the dump truck with the new truck with the plow, correct?
Correct,
All right.
yes. And to go along with that, these particular trucks that we got in 2000, these were what, they're calling refurbished. I mean, these things have completely gone through. So that's probably why we've got so much life out of an 89 truck for the last 21 years. So, that's why I'm comfortable
Okay.
with giving you.
It's your department, it's your equipment, I mean, if you're fine with refurbished, then I'm all for that, as a cost saver.
Yeah, well, I'm
But
just.
you get your new truck and
Yeah, new plow truck, right? But yeah, I'm in the back of my mind, I'm still thinking, I've got 2 airports to deal with, so I've got, 4 trucks, so.
Okay.
That's all.
Richard, you have a question?
I was just gonna say that, I think I am much more comfortable with what Ty is comfortable with, because the next truck may be coming quicker than we think out at another airport or at one of the airports, because we have stressed them to maximum asset life, I won't argue that, okay? And we are at a time where it's a little different, we have more choices, but I am very comfortable, I'm comfortable putting $110,000 in there. At this point, I'm not comfortable with $200,000.
One more thing I want to comment on, just to add to what Richard said. We have 4 fuel trucks. We have 2 Jet A trucks, 1 at each airport. We're going to talk about the other one when we get to Grand Place. We also have 2 avgas trucks. Make no mistake, the other ones aren't much better. Over the next 3 or 4 years, you're going to see us do this every year to replace even the avgas trucks. So I just want to make sure that the board understands that this is part 1.
1 out of 4 coming up.
Any additional comments? All right,
Make a motion, we change it to $100,000, the jet fuel truck replacement.
All right, do I have a second on that? Okay, we have a first and a second. Any further discussion? Now, we're strictly talking right now about the
The
jet.
one fuel truck.
Yeah, the fuel truck, adjusting the proposed budget of $200,000 to $100,000. We have a first and a second. Further discussion?
Can I amend it real quick?
Sure.
Amend it to 100,000 and the remainder of the plan be as stated. The remainder of the capital plan. I'm trying to do it all in one motion.
Okay, do it all.
Let's take it one piece at a time.
Okay, you want different motions? That's fine.
Motion was one piece at a
Okay, we have a motion on the floor on the one item in the budget. If there's no further discussion, all in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Any, all opposed?
Aye.
Okay,
I didn't vote, so.
okay.
You have to
I'm
vote.
not saying you guys, I was thinking before you jumped. I'm a yes. Since Ty was comfortable with it, I'll go with it.
So you're
I'm a
voting
yes.
in favor
Of
of the change to
Correct.
$100,000? Okay. All right, now we have the remaining capital items being proposed. Do I have a motion to approve those? Bob? Do I have a second? Okay, Tyler, any further discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? All right. The operating budget will then be adjusted for the jet fuel truck, $100,000. Hopefully you get a good quality machine for that. Let's move on to Grand Lakes.
Grand Glaze, we're getting to the bottom of our budget. Page 96 is the summary. Revenues are 98, 99, expenditures, the same. I know you guys approved the personnel changes, and I took that as both because it's a shared part-time between the two, Grand Glaze and DC Fine. On O&M, I think I put.
Does the board concur with that, or would you like to make a motion on the additional quarter person for Grand Lakes? Okay, we're fine. Your assumption is good. I just want clarity.
No, I understand.
All right.
O&M, a couple of little increases. Overall, admin reimbursement, which is tied to what's happening all around the city with the services that we share. Maintenance and repair went up a little bit. Other than that,
Any questions on O&M? Richard?
So Ty, if I remember right, you may have to, but when we bought the last truck we bought, was that truck what gave you the ability to sell jet fuel at Grand Lakes? Okay, so we've grown that from, have we peaked out in your mind? It seems like we're kind of plateauing on what we can sell. I'm curious, and if that is the case, then was it worth it to have the truck?
I think so, yeah. I mean, we've exceeded my expectations.
Okay.
And you'll see with my capital piece that I've got coming up, that
Okay.
I'm gonna ask for a fuel trailer
Right.
to be able to haul, to be able to haul the fuel back and forth. 'Cause at this point, I'm not comfortable driving that truck back and forth to Lacey Fine to fill it up. This was a test in my mind to see if jet fuel was gonna be sustainable at Grand Blaze like it was in the past, and I think there's more demand for it. And I'm still seeing the fuel cells increase on the jet fuel side.
Okay. I'll stop there and we'll talk more capital time.
Okay.
Okay. Any additional comments on O&M? With none, let's move on to capital.
as far as the one grant project, 90% funded, the other field trip.
Questions of the board? Richard, you have some additional questions?
Yeah, so what I think I heard you say is because the truck's we're not comfortable enough with it, we're gonna buy a $40,000 trailer. Would it be better to, as much as I hate to say it, take the other $100,000 that was over at Lacey Fine and go buy a truck that we are comfortable with and don't need a trailer?
Yes, sorry.
I mean, I don't want to buy a $40,000 trailer to just help us keep a truck that really that's gonna break down. You're gonna want to change it out next year.
It's that bad a shape, we don't need to be driving it anyway.
That's why we don't want to move it.
And I don't have a problem with that. I was gonna question that too. Why are we buying a trailer if the truck is not safe enough?
I have an answer.
Don't drive it.
These particular trucks really aren't designed for over-the-road type stuff, so in my mind, that's what I was trying to get away from. A good truck or not, I'd just soon not be driving that truck out.
You'd rather haul it in a trailer.
I'd rather haul it in a trailer.
We have no other options but to get it to Lacey Fine. We can't get it to Grand Place,
Unless we we'll have to put in
Fuel field.
a fuel farm.
which
put it in
is
another
approximately how much would you guess?
A lot.
Is it more than 40,000? Is it a lot more than 40,000?
I don't think you'll get a tank for that. I mean.
I have no idea.
I deal with it every day too, so I'm sure Ty knows.
It'd be close to 100,000.
Yeah. But now these,
But you've got a lot of cost of transport too.
in a,
So I'll ask the question, did you ask for a trailer because you didn't think you get any more than this? Or is this the right thing to do?
I've got 2 or 3 things in mind with the trailer. You get these trailers for $23,000, 23, depending on how big I want to get it, haven't decided, because I don't know what truck's pulling yet. If all these fuel trailers have meters on them, but now, if you actually want to sell fuel out of that trailer, you get the Department of Agriculture meter. It's rated for retail sales, which is about another $7,000.
Okay.
That was what I was thinking, anywhere from $23,000 to $40,000. At your discretion, if I get a trailer that I can actually sell out of. Now, if the jet truck at Grand Blaze goes kaputs,
You have backup.
I've got a trailer that I'm hauling back and forth that I can sell.
Would you not be better off, like Richard said, just if you've got that issue and, you know, I mean, it'd be nice to have a backup, but if you had a truck to replace that truck, would you not be better off that way?
True, but I'm still at the situation where I don't want to drive that truck out.
Yeah.
So if it was a brand new truck, you wouldn't want to drive it back there?
Not particularly, no.
Interesting.
So why'd we start doing it to begin with then?
It's the only way we could get
Yeah,
gas
we
out
could get
there.
it transferred.
At Grand Blaze. We didn't have ourselves at Grand Blaze.
Right.
Right.
And like Ty said, it was a test to see
It
if
was
it
a
was
test
gonna
to see if it,
be
you know, if it's even
successful
gonna be
enough to.
to have enough.
We've got a helicopter that lands over there all the time, uses that type of fuel.
So we're selling like, how many thousand gallons are we selling a year in Grand Blaze approximately?
I think we're at 12 or 13,000.
And we make about how much a gallon?
$1.
Okay. So we'll have to break even less than
Todd, you had a question?
So does the fuel get delivered to Lacey Fine and we have to disperse it from there?
Yes, sir.
Why won't they deliver fuel to both? Is it?
I don't have a tank for
No tank.
jet fuel. I only have a tank for ag gas at Grand Blaze.
I thought we had a truck for each at Great Place.
We do.
They won't deliver directly to the truck?
Correct.
Oh.
Yeah.
But they will at Lacey Fine.
No, they're delivering to a tank.
Yeah.
They're delivering to a fuel.
You have a fuel.
I didn't
We're
know they-
selling at 2 places, but we're only storing at 1. Is that a fair statement?
I didn't know they wouldn't deliver to a vehicle. They will only deliver to a tank.
Yes.
Ah.
Yeah,
All right, that makes the picture clear.
our fuel's going through the filter 3 times when they deliver.
So how big a tank do we need to have over Grand Blaze? 2,000, 20,000? I have no idea. So what's it cost to install a $2,000 fuel tank depot? Because there's cost for you to drive back and forth.
Right.
There's cost to maintain a vehicle to hook a trailer to, as well as maintaining the trailer.
The other thing that you'll have to look at that is what kind of modifications we would have to the fuel farm at Grand Blaze right now. So I'm not even sure if there's room for another
Gotcha.
tank.
Another question I would ask. And then if for some reason your jet fuel truck at Grand Blaze had a problem, then you couldn't, get it out to, the plants. That's one of the reasons he was talking about buying one big enough or with the capacity to actually pump and sell, from the trailer.
But if you have a problem with the truck that hauls a trailer, that same thing happens. Is that right? Okay. So maybe here's a suggestion. We approve the $40,000 trailer and the budget as a line item, but before we spend the money,
Research a
we,
fuel
we
farm.
find out how much it costs for the fuel depot upgrade before we make the final decision to purchase the trailer. Does that sound reasonable to anyone?
I didn't realize they wouldn't deliver to the truck.
Makes sense to have an actual tank there for sure.
Well, I mean, we did.
Is that unique to this provider?
Not necessarily.
I had it delivered to a truck, I had it delivered to my fuel truck when I was in Eureka's user.
This type of fuel?
No, it's diesel fuel.
I
Diesel.
don't know if that makes a difference.
And I don't know that, and it was also years ago too, but
Yeah.
that's why I was kind of confused that they wouldn't deliver to the truck.
I mean, it all came down to the quality control
And aviation different than
Aviation,
Right.
EPA.
It's the high, it's the jet fuel.
I'm glad it is. If I break down in my car, I can just coast.
Any further discussion? It's gonna have to come to the board before, for approval anyway because of the amount, so at that time, we would be asking these questions.
We would expect that.
Exactly, exactly. All right, if there are no further questions, is there a motion to approve the capital as requested for the Grand Reserve? Tyler, do I have a second?
Second.
Richard?
Oh, sorry.
Richard, all in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? All right, thank you very much. Let's move on. We have the TIFs to discuss next. Dearbirds?
I honestly do not have any specific comments other than what we'd already talked about with sales that trickle through. We added a new TIF, Arrowhead, because we are starting to see the pilots come in. So I really don't, unless you guys have specific questions, I don't have any, additional capital or non-department funds. I just wanted you to be aware of them, plus they're in our budget, so we needed to at least address them. So I don't have any other insight. Unless you have questions on any of them.
And the questions may be specific. If you have a question specific to the Dearbird TIF, let's discuss it. If not, you have one specific to the Arrowhead TIF, let's discuss it. If not, we move on. There's really no approval for this. Yes.
I didn't understand your answer you gave me the other night.
Okay.
I haven't slept, not real good last couple nights, but anyway.
Worry about it that much?
Under Arrowhead,
All right, under Arrowhead.
why isn't there any city administrative reimbursement?
Because we have not
There's
started.
revenue coming in under Dearborn, there was under Pruitt, now there's nothing projected at all under Arrowhead. Why not?
Well, the one thing Karen and I are working on is understanding the contract. This contract was written a little more complicated in this area than past TIFs. We know we are owed, so I probably wasn't real clear with the answer, because I'm like, oh no, it hasn't hit the TIF yet. Well, it hasn't hit the TIF yet because we're waiting on a legal answer on exactly what that way it explains administrative costs. Because the other contracts we have are very explicit. It's 1% of everything that comes in. Anything that flows through Carrie's department, we can charge ourselves 1%. Now, the Arrowhead TIF is not written that plainly. So Carrie and I are still figuring that out, and our goal is to have it figured out so beginning with the first of the year, we can get it going the way it's supposed to.
And keep in mind, what we did receive in 21 is like 2.5 years worth of pilots. This thing was bottlenecked. We didn't know if we would ever see any activity in this at all. So hopefully that issue with the pilots is lined out, and yeah, we'll focus in on.
We've already pulled the contract and pushed it to Ed to give us clarification, because unfortunately it's not as clear on the city side as the other TIFs.
So there will be some kind of
Yes, there
revenue,
will be.
you just haven't determined
If
how.
we can catch ourselves up, like Carrie
Okay.
said, that's kind of
That's
what
Rather it be revenue.
And when you're dealing with legal stuff, I understand it takes a little bit of.
Any other questions? All right, I guess the next item will be moving on to unfinished business. I know that we've got some handouts that we would like to give to you before we do that. So I'm gonna call for a 10-minute break. We'll pass out the documents and give you a chance to take a look at them. And then we will, do the presentation and answer any questions you might have. Okay? Fair enough? All right, let's go into 10 minutes. Back in session to discuss unfinished business. You don't take this or just want to pass it on to Cindy?
Pass it on to Cindy.
We just pass it on to Cindy. So Cindy, if you can share the information that we passed out to the board earlier.
Yes, Mayor and members of the board. On Monday night, I was given direction to go and look at some numbers and review some information and to maybe provide some information of some discussion that we did have. Two of the items that I felt that were needed to be discussed were number of employees below our midpoint of the pay range and our starting salary of level 8. And as we are all aware, in the last couple of meetings and stuff, we've talked about our performance-based compensation plan. The model presented to us by CBIZ, to be effective, several processes should be reviewed. The salary compression of our current plan has developed, as we've discussed, over years of time. And the following are my recommendations to correct the current compression and alleviate the problem in the future. Staff is recommending that we adjust the pay plan structure as recommended from CBIZ, 3.83%, that is budgeted in the current budget that's been presented, as well as move the employees below the minimum to the minimum for each pay plan level. That's already budgeted in 2022 budget as well. And then I provided, the budget that we do have presented included the premium percentage added to the merit increases of 2.5%. However, when looking at it and addressing the compression, I'm providing two different models here. One is to just and add a 3.83% instead of the 2.5% as a merit increase premium citywide. That would cost us an additional approximately $59,000 plus 15%, which is right around $9,000. Or there's a 5%, which would be a little bit more aggressive, and it would alleviate a little bit more of the compression. The additional cost to the budget would be $98,000, with roughly $15,000 in retirement and payroll taxes. I do want to know, and I know we focused, there was a lot of discussion.
Before you go, is the 98 on top of the 59 or is 98 total?
98 would be the total for the 5%.
But 15% on top of that is the true number, is that right?
Yes. Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
So it's like really closer to 113.
Right,
So you
okay.
got retirement.
That's the way I understood the 15%,
Right.
but just want to make sure it's clear.
And that's in addition to what's already in the budget, the 2.5 is already built into the budget.
Yeah. So I do want to kind of spend a little bit of time on the graph that we had talked about with the bell curve and what we looked at. First of all, I want to remind everybody that CBIZ benchmarked all of our jobs that did not have progression levels with them. The progression levels were not included in there, and neither are the individuals in those positions. Meaning the Public Works 1 was benchmarked, but Public Works 2 and Public Works 3 wasn't. Meaning the police officer level for level 8 was in there, but the corporals and the sergeants and the lieutenants were not because they progressed up to the next levels. So with my count here and the tables that I provided, I just didn't have enough time to add in because I was doing a lot of other figuring and trying to figure out the years and the positions and stuff to provide the same type of glance as the bell curve. But the tables I've provided will give us, let you know how it's going to affect the compression. We do have 100 full-time budgeted positions with this budget. 82 of those are filled right now with the 18 vacancies. I went through and determined the length of in the position, not hire date, but individuals that their length in their positions. 37 employees with less than 2 years in position, 12 employees with 2 to 4 years in position, 17 employees with 4 to 8 years in position, and 16 employees with 9+ years in position. And if you take it, and if we can determine that 6 to 8 years is going to take an employee to get to the midpoint, in 2022, with our 18 vacancies, 72% of the employees will have less than 5 years in their position. So there is a reason that our bell curve is going to lean heavily to the left and below the midpoint. So I just wanted to kind of clarify, there are some reasons that we are doing that because of our young experience in a lot of our positions. And it doesn't necessarily mean that that is they're higher, because a lot of positions today, we've had promotions. We've just promoted a couple of detectives. We've had movement in a couple other positions in city treasurer's office and public works. So some of those employees have been with us for a while. They're just new in their positions. And when they go into a new position, they almost always start toward the end, because they either get moved up to the minimum of that position, or by ordinance, they can get a 3%, whichever's more. With our current, what I provided in the first table there, the employee count detail before pay adjustments, this is what it looks like just moving the pay structure itself. You go in down at 3.83%, you can see then there's a little bit more movement to the third and fourth quartile, as well as some movement from the first and second. If you look at the 5% on the back of your page, you'll see there's quite a bit more movement, not to the third and fourth quarter, but from first going to second quarter. So this will help alleviate some of the problems that we do have. It's not going to correct everything, but it will alleviate something depending on the board's desire and what they want to choose. The additional information that we should look at is increase the merit increase percentages in future years. This year, when we approve the budget, this information is this is effective January 1, 2022. So meaning that when the performance evaluations are created by NeoGov in December, managers start working on them in January, February. Employees will get their merit increases, as well as the premiums that are decided on, and then they are prorated back to January 1. I'm talking about merit increase percentages that we need to look at in 2022 to make them available in 2023. When we implemented the plan back in 2002, our merit increases percentages were a lot more aggressive. Due to budget constraints and everything, they've been lowered over the years to continue with merit increases, but at a lower level. Also, I would recommend, we originally put the plan in place. We gave employees probation, when they come off probation, a 3% increase. At that same time, when we did lower the merit increase percentages, we lowered that to 2%. I am recommending that we consider going back to our 3% when they come off of their 6-month probation. And then also, because of the current environment, the staff will focus closely on all elements of the pay plan. How long it should take to meet the midpoint of the pay level, should current employee salaries be adjusted when pay plan levels for position change, consider starting salary range based on experience, and keep the pulse of the immediate surrounding employers' starting wages. So staff is going to maybe focus on a lot of that when we do. So basically, if we have the increase in percentage and the merit increase percentages, the way the plan should work, if CBIZ reviews our plan structure next year and they say, it really needs to be adjusted 0.83%, and we decide to adjust that structure, if we have a progressive enough merit increase percentages, we should not have to, they should outweigh and outperform the adjustment of the plan. Does that make sense?
So really what Cindy, when we talked about this today, because of the way the market, so increasing the merit percentages.
A little louder, please, Gina.
Increasing the merit percentages and increasing the 3%, from probation. That's one way, along with following how long it takes someone to get the midpoint. It's more timely response to the market. We've not been in this market, so the things were done the way the things were done, and it didn't have a big effect. But by doing these things or paying more attention to these things quicker, it does allow us to be better timely response to the market. So that's another thing, and I know Cindy will probably touch on this. Although whether you decide the 3.83 premium or 5% premium, that adds to the budget. And I know again, Cindy probably can go into some detail on this, but moving the employees from below minimum to minimum of each pay plan, which is budgeted, it actually goes a little further than that, because certain departments, they may be even moved up a little above the minimum because of the certain jobs. You know, we have some that are a little more, you know, by job, what's happening more in the bubble. So I just want to say, it's not just, oh, it's the minimum, that's it. She has, in each department, there might be circumstances, I think, dispatch, we think we corrected, but some of those aren't just the minimums, it very well could still be above the minimums. Which is already budgeted.
Yes.
Correct, yeah.
Yeah, so basically that goes into our starting salary of level 8. Basically, the pay plan structure is a whole, and we do not want to risk the integrity of the plan by just focusing on one pay level. The things that we need to do is that we need to be able to react to the current markets and be aggressive in those certain positions. And like Gina had said, you know, in 911, halfway during the year, we were understanding and we were trying to get in front of and be aggressive with our dispatch positions. And we did do that. We addressed our new hires as well as our current employees. I know that now that the current market with law enforcement is something that we are aggressive looking at right now based on information that we're getting from the other entities. We haven't received any definite information on that, except I received something from Camden County late last night. And I haven't received anything from Miller County yet. We've been asking them for months for information, and we've been asking them right after the law enforcement tax was approved for this information. But I did get something confirmed. I'm waiting for a few more questions to be answered from Camden County. I'm still waiting for information from Miller County.
So
we are aggressively
that
looking
group,
at that.
in addition to like some technician positions, you have to consider what's above the minimum, and that is being addressed and will be already kind of included in the estimates are included in the 2022 budget. So I just didn't want you to think, yeah, that it's like, well, just the minimum. No, there are some spots that we still have to go above and beyond that without just specifically changing that job's minimum. And another thing I would want to, salary ranges based on experience. We already do this, but like we were discussing today, we don't have a formal, official policy. Like Cindy and I, it's job description based. Every time we have a hire and we discuss offers, it's like, okay, let's analyze. What's the minimum on the job description versus where do we think we can rate where they come in on the job description? So we already do this, but probably more formalizing that will help us. Maybe one of us aren't here anymore. It's like help kind of continue that. Again, another way that it's just not always a simple answer. That's the minimum, that's what you get. So we do that, we just need to formalize that.
Yeah, and another area that we did look at in late 2019 and 2020 was our EMS personnel. We try to keep a pulse on the local production ambulance districts to make sure that staffing and everything, because we're being competitive, not just full-time, but as well as part-time employees for the ambulance. So we did have to adjust some of those numbers as well to be aggressive in our hiring to make sure that we have our staffing levels where we need it in the ambulance division as well. So just want you to understand that the minimum of level 8 is for all those positions, but each position might require a little bit different for us to look at depending on the current hiring market. Is there any questions?
Phyllis?
Cindy, what is the normal period for probation?
6 months.
Is that the same for every department?
Yes, citywide.
Okay, thank you.
Anything else, Phyllis? Bob?
All righty. So just to clarify, the pay plan structure increases, are those automatic pay increases effective January 1? So the non-elected employees can automatically see a pay increase January 1 of 3.83% or 5%, correct?
Yeah, I won't be able to get them into, the way we've set it up because of our performance evaluations and everything, So the employees that are below the minimum, when we move the pay plan structure, I will have those on the first paycheck in January. That affects January. So the first paycheck in January is almost all covered in December, but the first paycheck that covers January 1, I will have the ones, I will bring all employees that are below the minimum to the minimum that way. The 3.8% or the whatever premium that is decided on, that will go with the performance evaluations. That will be on the first check in March, but I will prorate it back to January 1.
Kind of we discussed. The other thing, and of course, is going to be up to discussion with the board, 3.83 versus 5%. I look at the percentiles again, the bottom two, they're listed as first and second on your graphs, basically that's the 25 and 50% percentile. We currently have 79 employees that are at the 25% percentile or below, correct? 79.
79% of those that were rated in this study,
Yes.
not
Yeah.
You're
total.
call adding that column.
Correct.
Yeah,
So
that's
it's
right, yeah, I'm
So
following.
basically, if we do the 3.83, that'll basically lessen that pool to 66. If we do the 5%, that lessens that pool to 58. So basically, the difference between the 3.83 and the 5%, you can do the simple math yourself, is not a whole lot, but once again, the key thing is to get people up to par where they should be on the bell curve, which we know, and I agree, we're always going to be on the left side of that bell curve because we have some new employees or non-tenured employees. But once again, 79 down to 58, that's a huge improvement. You know, that's obviously over 20% of our staff now is going to be moved into a higher percentile.
Yes.
I'm just saying that to pitch the 5% if you don't know where I'm going with this. So.
And then to address that further next year, then we would look at being more progressive in the merit increase percentages that are offered at the end of.
Agreed.
Okay.
But that's all I had. Just wanted to point out some stats and figures I'm looking at.
Glad you did. Richard, you had a question or comment?
A couple, three. One, the way the market study is done by pay grade, okay, or pay level, is half of the people are on the left and half of the people are on the right. That's the market. Is that a fair statement? I want to make sure that I'm understanding that graph.
Should be your focal point here.
Right?
So with the
That
pay,
midpoint is the median, so half the people are above it and half the people are below it. Is that
When you
right?
say people, your competitors?
Yes, in the industry.
Yes, in the industry, that's, yeah. your competitors.
yes.
In the industry.
Yes.
In the industry, not our staff.
Right, but even if we do the 5%, we are going to have, let's see, 8 and 6 is 14 out of 100 people.
At 50 or greater.
Yes. So we don't reflect the market, even at 5%. So I don't know if we're going to consider any more, but I'm with you for 5%.
Well, let
Um,
me
You have
add
to
something
also
to that.
remember.
Hang on, if I can
Okay.
finish, okay? I'm not convinced that the predominance of the industry at those grade levels have a significantly different tenure than what we have, okay? And so for us to say, well, we just have new employees, well, I've got a feeling there's a whole bunch of people out there with new employees, because there's a whole lot more people retiring. So I gotta believe there's a lot of new people out there, okay? So I don't know that, well, I understand that's a validation.
We don't know it is, but we don't know it's not.
Right, but the point is, our bell curve, even at 5%, is still going to be significantly up, and it isn't necessarily because of, and so we could, if you guys want to respond to that, that's fine. But the point is, that's the facts, okay? That's the true numbers, all right? And so then the other thing I had to say is how long should it take to meet the midpoint of a pay level? I think we should define some of that, okay? So my question is, it says you will focus on that. What does focus mean? Does that mean that we're going to come up with some policy guidelines, not set in stone rules, or we're just going to try to implement that as we go? And not that I don't trust you, but trust us, we're working on it. I'm not sure what focus means.
That's Cindy's thing, she can answer herself, but my thing is focus, I should say track. What I want to know, because what I don't want to get into is move inadvertently, not on purpose, move out of a merit-based system. We should have an idea, track how long the last couple of years, and follow employee, whatever, how long has it taken them to get to midpoint? Track what's our history, then what we think, okay, theoretically, hypothetically, what do we think? And then I think that leads to how do we keep policies ahead of the game to you guys to stay timely with that. So I would almost change that to track. It's not my words, that's Cindy's.
That's okay.
But to me, it's more track, because I don't want to say a policy, well, these employees have to get to, because then you're doing it more like, oh, you've been here that long, you just deserve to make that much. I still want to, my focus would still be, it needs to maintain a merit-based system, but we should truly know what it takes in our organization to get to the midpoint and our expectations. And that can help guide us each year at budget to say, okay, what ordinances do we need to change on merits or probation to stay timely with work? That's how I look at it. I
That's
didn't
a
write
tool
that.
you need to use to evaluate your managers, because if you have department A, B, C, and D, and they're all doing about the same, you got department F, supervisor, and all of his employees or her employees
Always get an excellent.
always get excess or always get less.
Right.
Why?
And that's a trend I try to watch because I do look at every evaluation, but I don't because I want to micromanage it. I don't work with these people. What I do is the supervisors the same way. Where do I see trends in the departments of, we got people way over here. So you're exactly right. Again, it would be something you would use on many levels, that included, but to keep ahead of, okay, are our tools that the board is adopting on the bigger policy working the way that we need them to work to get to? So that's how I look at it. That's how I would use it. I don't know if Cindy's meant on that.
Plus, once you have that kind of information, the organizations that, like Gina belongs to, okay, the city manager groups, you can always bounce those kinds of numbers off of, other entities and find out how we compare. And then if we're below or above, then you can start talking about the factors that make those up, okay? So that will help us kind of determine, where we are in the scheme of things in comparison.
If it's gonna piggyback on his comment, go ahead, but I wasn't finished, that's me, but you go right ahead.
Go ahead.
Well, I guess I would just say that, we need to recognize where we're still at, okay? And I am concerned that we can compete in the market, okay, even at 5%. And I'm not suggesting that we necessarily go higher, but this doesn't move the needle that much, okay? And maybe we can't afford it anymore, but we need to address reality, okay? Because, for example, we lost Chad, we're losing Chad. And is Chad going, where does he move? Does he want to go home or something?
He just bought a house down the road from
So
me.
he's staying in the area and he's leaving us for the private sector.
Correct.
He's actually creating he's actually opening his own business, so that's, he's got a reason for wanting to do that.
Yeah.
Okay.
He's been building that for years.
He thinks there's more money to be made there. Okay.
Other
So,
factors in that too.
so before I get off that, does yours tag, because I'm gonna go to the next bullet point, so if you want to jump in, go ahead.
That was jobs and range-based experience.
I haven't got to that one yet, so we'll get there. So should current employee salaries be adjusted when pay plan levels for position change? I'm not sure I understand what that question means.
Okay, so if you have our transportation and water departments this year, their pay plan levels went up one. So the practice.
They went up one, what do you mean?
Went up one grade.
Oh, I didn't notice that was a grade
There was
level
a couple
change.
positions that changed.
Grade level
grade.
changes,
Yeah.
okay.
So they went up one level. So basically the practice has been that if the employee has been in there and if they're within that pay level range, their salary doesn't change. So then that also creates some compression because they're moved up to another level, but it does put them back down to a lower quartile where they get a higher percentage of their merit increases. So it's just something that we need to look at as staff to determine what we need to do.
And I don't have a recommendation answer because I want to do more research on that.
And that's fine.
I know why our practice has been, but.
Okay,
Yeah.
all I would suggest is if I move from level 7 to level 8, I should still be at the same 1.1 or 1.2 or 1.5% of the minimum when I go up.
Well, when you do move grade, you either, if you're already above the minimum, ordinance gives you 3%, or for every grade you move.
Okay, so
So
you
there
have
is
to do the
some
math on that.
compensation,
Right.
but again, I don't have.
If I'm moving a grade, if I'm the employee and I'm looking at this, I'm going, well, you just didn't have the grade levels right. I've been giving you a gift for the last 5 years, so why am I not further up in the pay range? Okay, and so I think that we should. I do think we should answer that question.
Yeah,
These other folks.
that I need more research. I don't have an answer.
So when you say consider starting salary range based on experience, are you saying that there's some guidelines, or it's just some flexibility within the range?
Again, I would need, that's Cindy's word, consider, we are doing this. I do
Okay.
this before I sign any new hire, I have started in the last year and a half, more so because of the market. What's the job description? What were the minimums that we determined, and where do they fall with that? And for me to put some kind of mathematical factor, if you minimum need a bachelor's degree, okay, well, for associate's degree, you got a bachelor's degree, or 5 years progressive experience and they have 10. That means something. How do I put a factor on that? I want to get that, what's in my mind, more formalized, so HR understands, or the departments understand as they're going through applications. So consider doing it. I already do this.
You do it, but it's just not.
I don't
you couldn't
have it
hand me a sheet of
formalized.
paper and let them and say, follow this guideline, follow these.
Right, I don't have it formalized. Cindy and I have not formalized something, but we have these conversations.
And my last item here, staff will focus closely on this. I'm not saying we don't already do these. We already do look at this, but I'm just saying because of the current competitive market, we need to probably focus on it a little bit more, maybe define a few things internally a little bit better. But we do currently do all of this stuff. It's just that we just need to get a little bit better because of where we are in the current market.
Okay. So go ahead if you want to talk about the key pulse, Bob. Go ahead.
Keep going, Your Honor.
The last one I was going to say is you sent some information out, I'm going to say back in August or September, and talked about what the new folks are coming into the workforce, or the folks that are younger in the workforce, what they're looking for and what their hot buttons are. And work from home was one of the hottest, as I recall. That was one of the biggest changes over time. And I don't think we have a work from home policy, do we?
I have a draft sitting on my desk.
Okay, good. So I was just going to say, I would hope that by the time that we're presenting performance appraisals, which I realize the road officers, I'm sorry guys, you can't work from home, but anyway.
Sorry, sewer guys, you don't get to work
But
from
for
me
those
either.
that do, I would hope that we could find a way as a board to align on that policy, because I assume that would come to the board. It would not?
It's just an operational policy.
Okay. Well, I thought it was an HR policy, and I know we've had those discussions before. But I would hope that policy would be in place. It could be communicated, and I would like to be aware of what the policy.
Well, when I get a draft, it would just be considered an administrative policy, like how you clock in or what the hours of city, those aren't typically administrative
Well,
policies
that's
aren't
fine.
typically, but I will be glad once it got paused because of budget, but I'll be glad to share my draft or,
Okay, that's fine.
with the board. I don't have a problem with that.
Because I just believe there's going to be more questions from
Oh,
certain people over time about why I can or can't do what I think I should be able to do.
And this is a hot topic with cities. Like I said, it's a hot topic on our listserv, especially since COVID. More and more cities are putting stuff officially in writing with perimeters because where they may have not had it. So we're not going through any of those growing pains that other municipalities aren't going through. We know the private sector has, and they get to react a little quicker, but I'm not recreating the wheel. I've got some good examples and putting our own fit into it. So yeah, I just took a break because of budget.
Are you including that both from a permanent standpoint and a temporary standpoint?
Well,
I've broken my leg.
Right.
I'm medically.
it's addressed.
I medically can't work in the office, but I can work from home for the next 2
That
weeks.
is lightly addressed, but more so it's more of a permanent, but yet case by case by department. Because you may have stuff happen that the department manager says, well, we can do this temporary or something, but yeah, I don't mind sharing that with the board once I.
Well, and the last thing I'll say is I kind of skipped over, but I think our salary study or whatever, the compensation study or whatever, it's supposed to keep pulse with the media surrounding employer starting wages, right?
Yeah, but like with the ambulance that we just had in dispatch, there are sometimes that it's has an immediate impact on us and our hiring. So we try to, like I said, ambulance and dispatch were the ones that we had to deal with for the last 18 months.
Okay, that's all I have.
All right, back to me. I agree with Richard on a lot of what he's saying, especially the statement that I'm not sure if 5% is really even enough. But I will say to the numbers, we're fortunate we have 100 employees, so basically you can break down everything pretty easy in percentiles here. We currently have basically 30% of our workforce is at the 50th percentile. By doing the 5% increase, basically that's going to put 29% of our employees at the 50th percentile, which means it is a move up the curve. It it is getting people closer to that midpoint. Is it where it needs to be 100%? Obviously not. But to go from 13% to 29% is a huge adjustment at the 5%. So in my mind, it's a baby step. Not to say that we can't then next year say, okay, maybe we need to up that again, another 5% or 3%, or whatever that number is going to be. And remind me, merit increases, that's 3%?
Merit increases depend on your
performance
quartile, the quartile and your performance rating.
But on average, it is.
So on citywide average, it's been around 3 to 3.5%.
Okay. So if we do an automatic increase to pay for 5% right now, then a lot of employees can say, hey, starting January, I'm going to get a 5% increase on my pay rate, and
Plus whatever your merit.
Plus my merit, as long as I'm meeting or exceeding the guidelines, so that's going to be an automatic. I don't want to say automatic, it's going to be about an 8% increase per employee.
Yes.
Which isn't bad.
Plus more, because you've got some of your employees that you're gonna bump up that are.
Some may get those additional adjustments
Some are gonna have to
because they're below.
But there's eight employees automatically have to get more than that.
I agree. If we want to fix this in 1 year, you're right, it's probably going to be double digits. But if we do 2 year, do aggressive, what we're considering aggressive this year, take a balance check this time, next year we may need 1 more year aggressive. And then you get a little, like, how did this work? How did it end up with the real numbers with our people? See, that's why we had originally said, yeah, it'd be nice to fix or at least get a further than 1 year. That's totally up to the board. You guys tell us what percent we'll work it in. And you got kind of an idea what a 5% would cost you. So if you double that, 10, that would be another 113,000.
5% is 98,000.
Right, so that'd be easy math if you wanted to offer something else, but a second year may be needed on aggressive, so it still isn't bad to do this year on the aggressive side, what we're considering aggressive, not most aggressive, and then recheck ourselves this time next year with actual data, and we may need to another year.
But if to say, okay, instead of 5%, we do 7%, that's only another 2% more than the 98,000 you're saving there. But then basically with that 7% automatic increase in pay rate and a merit raise, then every employee across the line sees an automatic 10% pay increase in the next 12 months. Correct?
Yes, good quick math, right?
That's something I'd be comfortable with, at least to start.
If I could, the one thing I will say is, and it was mentioned, I think, at the presentation, what we don't quantify in here is benefits, okay? So we probably do better benefits than most people in the industries that are out there, okay? And so we do need to recognize. The problem is we can't quantify, right? So to help understand where our bell curve should set, okay? So, from a reality standpoint, it's good to know how you compare it to something that you can compare apples to apples to. Well, there is some things there, and so other than that, I can support something.
There is something to be said too for merit raises because we keep comparing ourselves against Camden, that goes on in Camden County especially, but it's my understanding that Camden County doesn't have merit increases as part of their pay structure.
Correct.
Those are basically just handed out arbitrarily. It could be in a year, you could get one in 5 years.
Yes.
There's no rhyme or reason. It's not something that every year you're going to repeat and going to receive some type of increase as long as you're meeting the expectations of the job.
Yes.
So I know we use Camden County a lot as the benchmark, but like you said, there could be a lot of differences on those different markets we are using to basically justify where we're at with our pay scale. But I think 7% increase across the board with the merit increases factored into that would get us even that much closer to that midpoint. That's what we're really looking for. And it sounds like a lot of money, but once again, it's really just to bring all the employees where they should be already.
So I did some quick math. If 5% is about 113,000 with the retirement and the FICA tax, 7% would equate to about 160.
Okay.
60.
160.
Yeah, you already said 10% would be about 200,000 here.
Kevin?
Couple of things. Gina conservatively recommended or estimated revenue based on 21.
Yes.
It's conservative. Based on 2010 to 2020, you're right on what we normally would do. Okay, so did 21 bounce us up and are we gonna bounce back to normal, or is 21, we're gonna go?
It's just my
I
crystal
know,
ball.
I'm just saying that,
It's just-
okay? And with that being said, I would be more in favor of, and I know this is difficult when the bosses say it, because I've been down this road, but to look at where we're at, go to 5, and see where we're at revenue-wise, and see where we're at later into the year. That's no guarantee, and I know unfortunately that can be a real morale killer, because I've been there and done that. Middle of the year taxes and middle of the year revenues and middle of the year expenditures go not as good as you want, so you can't give another raise in the middle of the year. And all the employees are like, well, I thought we were gonna get another one in the middle of the year. You know, and I don't want that, but that's something that, you know, we don't have to wait until next January to give another raise. Same way we didn't have to wait until the end of the year to cut employees and cut expenditures. You know, we can do it in mid-year. We can do it if we see that we have some things that allows us to do that. So I'm not saying I don't support jumping up to 7 or 10% now, but I also say, you know, we don't have to eat the whole elephant right now.
We're not even eating part of the elephant right now. I mean, drastic measures calls for drastic actions. We are so far behind the curve that to me, I'd be happy with doing a 10% increase. But I'm going to say, okay, 7% to me, the math seems smart. That's my personal opinion. And what's the difference? 5% versus the 7%, $60,000? Well, guess what? That means somebody's going to get a new truck next year.
40. Maybe.
Yeah,
maybe
47,
not.
yeah. I included the taxes.
$50,000, and regardless of how much we may be off on our revenue forecast, I don't think that's really going to be great for our budget.
Well, Ty jumped in with the refurbished truck, so that'll cover that extra money.
There you go.
I wouldn't say Ty jumped in, I think the board jumped in.
But I guess what I would say is I appreciate the fact that Gina was conservative on her revenue estimates, but what we do, and I don't believe we should change it, okay? But what I will say is here's what we know, okay? We've had we are looking at all the forecasts say that, you know, inflation is coming if it's not already here. And so the same loaf of bread now costs more, which is more sales tax because it's all a percentage, okay? And so I am not too worried about meeting that revenue forecast, to be quite honest. And given that fact, I really don't see any problem with 7%, so I'll leave it at that.
Talking about revenue forecasts, okay, I guess our last sales tax showed a 3% increase, okay, over the previous month last year. That was one of the first months where we really did see an increase, okay? First 7 months of the year, we only saw 1 month with an increase, okay? We didn't start seeing, you know, those types of increases, 15, 20% increases a month, which some of the other cities were seeing until August, okay? So now you already have that built in. So when you look at, I believe it was September over September, there was only, because you already had 20% built in over 20 to 21, okay? So now you had a 3% increase, 20 over 19, okay? So now you only saw 3%. Whether that's realistic or not, you can't look at 1 month, because there's a lot of things that factor that in. So I think that kind of goes to what Kevin was saying. Now, there's another factor we have to take into account is as COVID, you know, makes its adjustments, and hopefully it will continue to, you're starting to see a lot of people who came to the lake area because there were no other places to go, okay? You're already seeing, cruises and whatever, and people are anxious to try something that they wanted to do before, but were somewhat restricted by that. So, you know, how do we know how that's going to impact us? I don't know. So when we say I'm comfortable with the forecast that she's given you. I'm not comfortable with adding, you know, even more to that, you know, because there's a lot of unknowns there. I would much rather have a much more conservative revenue forecast and then be pleased when we see more.
I agree. I'm not recommending we change the revenue forecast. What I'm saying is based on the fact that the revenue forecast was highly conservative, I'll just say it that way in my mind. And knowing that, quote, inflation's out there already and the prediction is if it continues, maybe longer than some people like or whatever, that I don't think that we're at a huge risk of a significant miss on the current revenue forecast to where we can't afford this extra $60,000 or $100,000, depending on whether Ty gets a new truck.
We're not talking about 60, we're talking about 160.
Right.
Because it's $100,000 more at 5%, you add 2% on that, you're talking $160,000. So just keep that in mind. I'm just saying, the question now becomes, where do you make up that $160,000? And we'll leave that up to Gina to do.
I will tell you with draft two if that's your motion.
Well, part of it too is we keep talking about the current salaries right now and how we need to bring our staff to where they should be. But we keep saying, if you're going to hire the best, you need to be the best. You need to pay the best. And right now, with the labor shortage, we are at a disadvantage that should we start losing employees, we don't have people backed up to come in and take those positions. The labor market is so tight right now, and how are we going to get them in here? Well, we need to offer them a pretty good benefits package, and that's going to be their pay. So I'm looking further down the line as well, not just people we have on board right now and keeping them and getting them where they need to be. It's, okay, we lose employees, who are we replacing them with? Is this going to be attractive for them to work for the city? Guess what? They don't need to work for the city beach police department, they work in county because I want to make more money.
Well,
So-
Bob, that's true. We're already facing that situation.
Oh, yeah, we are.
It's not what
But
we're
it's going to
looking
get
for
worse.
in the future. It's what we're looking for now and what we've been looking for over the last year and a half. Okay, so that's not going to change. Now, one of the things that you're saying is if we improve, or if we entice, those new employees and also entice the retention of the existing employees, how is the best way to do that?
Yes.
Hopefully, this is one way to do it. As you build in salary costs like this, just remember, the salary costs are here, okay? They're gonna be here next year, they're gonna be added to, okay? So while we have enjoyed a great revenue flow in 2021, okay, that revenue flow has got to continue to grow to continue to pay those inflated, salary rates. That's just the only concern, that I bring up. I'm not trying to, tell you, what decision to make, but those are concerns that I have. And I know what our revenue increases have been in the last 5 years. Some years they've been flat. We've been lucky in other years to see a 3%. Okay, just as a point of reference.
I understand.
Okay.
On the flip side of that too, not to debate you on it, but look at the stats and look at the numbers.
Right.
Yes, an additional $160,000 in payroll, yes, that seems like a large pill to swallow, but once again, what would the percentage be to actually bring at least 50% of our employees up to that minimum? That'd be a 20% increase, a 25% increase. So what we're doing here to me is considered pretty small in the big scheme of things and looking at the numbers to say, what would we actually need to do as far as pay increases to get to where we actually should be according to the market analysis we just had done.
Yeah. But even
That
the
would be
even
huge.
the market analysis, if we saw a statement that was made in there, it says that, one of the things that's going to keep you below that 50% is, the newness of your
Tenure of
employees.
employees, correct.
Right, okay? And we've already said that, anticipated in 2022, 72% of our employees are gonna be below 5 years. So I'm just saying that there may be a natural reason why some of those numbers are going to be where they are because of these new employees. Now, Richard's brought up a point, don't know the answer to that, it's an unknown, okay? So, just a point of discussion. All right, any further discussion? All right, with, I guess, no further discussion, let's call for a motion as to, what the board would like to see put into the budget and give the city administrator an opportunity to see where the funds can come from.
I know we're trying to be conservative, but I'm gonna make a motion that we increase the pay adjustment to 7%. As opposed to the 3.83 or the 5%.
Second.
I still think that's conservative, but
Okay.
baby steps.
Okay, so we're talking about those funds, or that percentage that will close the gap. Okay.
Yes.
That
Or attempt to close the gap.
Attempted. it will close the gap. It is an increase, from what is in the budget at I just want for clarity, 2.5%. We will raise that amount to 7%.
What we're calling the premium.
We're calling the premium. Okay. We have a motion on the floor. Richard, I believe you seconded it. Okay, any further discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? We've got clarity on that. All right, anything else? Are there any other comments, before we, call the meeting, to a close? Yes, Richard?
So one thing in some conversations I've had, that there may be a perception out there in our workforce that, because Gina and them started out at 2.83 or whatever, and Cindy at 2.83, the board ended up at 7, Gina and them don't support salary. I think that Gina and them are trying to figure out how to make the board happy and outthink them, and based on history is how you usually start that, and based on the history, I'm sure that they were scared to even propose a 2.83. So just because they weren't as high as the board ended up, doesn't mean they don't support salary increases. Okay?
Where's all the employees here tonight?
Yeah, I'm just saying that if that's the perception, that's wrong. And as leaders of the departments, please communicate that. Because I'm sure they were just as spun around the head as anybody that we were going to end up with a 7% merit increase. They were probably wondering if they'd ever get 2.83 through. Okay? So that's their rules, okay? And so please don't come to that conclusion quickly, because I think that's a bad conclusion to come to. Just my 2 cents.
Good point.
Well said.
Yeah, thank you. Anything else? All right, then as far as I'm concerned, business for the night is complete, and we are adjourned. We will go into drafting and bring that to the board. Thank you all very much.